dollar and says Canada will only return to the negotiating table when the U.S. has the right attitude.
We could not accept what the U.S. had offered, nor could we give what they asked.
Carney also says he intends to expand trade relationships with the EU and other partners.
Fox's Jared Halpern at the White House. The judge just denying a defense motion for a mistrial in the case against Lindsay Clancy, the Massachusetts mother charged with murder in the deaths of her 3 young children. The defense claims postpartum psychosis. Closing arguments are expected this week. A mixed finish on Wall Street. The Dow up 139 at the bell. America is listening to Fox News.
I move mountains for a living. Literally. That means I don't carry hand lotion, and when it comes to serious heartburn, I don't mess around with anything but Rolaids Max Strength. Its dual-active formula has 1,500 milligrams of calcium carbonate and magnesium hydroxide that relieves heartburn fast. And the best part? The roll fits right here in my pocket, so I can get back to moving mountains.
Rolaids spells powerful relief. 1,500 milligrams is our highest amount of antacid per tablet. Read each label. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
When I hit my 50s, I felt like things were slowing down.
This is Sandra's Metamucil story.
I started taking Metamucil for digestion, but had no idea it would impact so much more. Not only did Metamucil help me feel more regular, but my heart health saw the benefits too.
Metamucil. One simple routine, 4 health benefits. Digestive health starts here. Go to metamucil.com for more details.
Oh, my gosh, what a beautiful day in St. Louis. I think Dave Murray and I kind of refer to these in a similar fashion. I call them the 10% days. I feel like there are only about 10% of the days in the entire year where the weather is this beautiful. And the last couple of days here in St. Louis have certainly qualified. We've earned it, though. I think we've earned it because of what happened a couple of weeks ago with the heat. I know that the 50 top golfers on the planet were very, very happy to have less humid conditions at the BMW Championships. And I also have to mention this, and I didn't do anything with this, and I don't know much about them, but you've got to give credit to the Savannah Bananas. I mean, they sell out, 2 nights at Busch Stadium again, and all kinds of fun stuff. Fred, I don't know if you saw this, but Matt Carpenter was there. David Eckstein was there. They had a bunch of former Cardinals that were there.
Downtown was hopping at 5 o'clock on Friday.
Yeah, that thing is real. That whole machine that is the Savannah Bananas is very impressive. I've really not watched it very much. My daughter has, and I know that they're extremely entertaining. But it's just a great, how many times we start on Monday here and something crappy happens here in St. Louis. And we have the eyes of the sports world to a certain extent. I know golf is not like, the NFL or Major League Baseball, but this was a pretty big tournament, and you had big names in it. You had Jim Nance. Frank Cusumano did an amazing interview with Jim Nance that aired last night on Channel 5.
Cool.
And I'll play some of that here. Dan Reardon had a chance to ask Wyndham Clark, the winner, a couple of good questions post-tournament as well. I was extremely spoiled. I went all 6 days, and, I took off Thursday and Friday. I went to the practice rounds. I will say this, that yesterday, Sue, you and your brother were there on Saturday, right?
Yes.
And you were in the BMW Owners Pavilion. They took great care of BMW owners. They had a view of 16 tee box and 15 green, and I want to make you guys kind of climb out of all your fancy spot to come say hi to me, but I was hanging out there, and I was wearing my XXXY hat all weekend, right? And I got a lot of comments. I've worn that hat before, and so has my wife. Not as many comments as I have this weekend. Hey, like your hat, like your hat. Like a lot of that.
Love that.
People noticing. But I was hopping around each day from hole to hole. I had a little bit of a game plan. I did not have access inside the ropes, as they say, but we did have the media center in the clubhouse. I would run into Dan Reardon. We kind of talk about the status of what was happening with the tournament. But it was just a lot of fun. And, the crowds were spectacular. I will say this. Way too many white cis dudes out there yesterday, like young men everywhere. Lots of young men, a lot of young women, too. Great-looking crowd, a respectful crowd. Golf is different because outside of maybe the TPC Sawgrass, that stadium hole, you got to be quiet. The marshals hold up signs, and you're not supposed to do anything to, affect the golfers. And I thought everyone was great at that. There's the stupid people that say things after a tee box, and I hate the whole, even with a putt, getting the whole thing. I just think it's ridiculous. People should be banned from that. But for the most part, the crowd was great. Now, when I show up yesterday, Sue, I have to thank my dear friend Jeff Drew, who's a Belle Reve member, and he hooked me up because, this.
He really did.
My parking was on Hunter Farms, and it was basically I park and I walk right into the 15th hole at Belle Reve. And our colleague Hannah Gibbs, who's a friend, she works at Y98, on Saturday morning, she was texting and saying, it might have been Friday, it's like, how did you get there? This shuttle thing from the family arena is just a disaster. Yeah, go ahead.
The world of PGA handles everything so beautifully that I decided we were going to ride share.
Smart.
So we Ubered there.
Smart.
And they had set up at Whitfield an entire tent, like we could all get married under it, like huge, with beautiful chairs. And your driver would drop you off, and then they would have arrows, and you just walked. Yeah. Into the thing.
Alex
it wasn't
did that
even
too. Rideshare was the way to go.
It was the way to go.
Right. And a lot of people take the shuttle, but so Hannah's texting me and I said, wait, how well do you know me? I don't do shuttles, all right? So I just had to just be as elitist as possible.
I'm just saying.
But it really was literally I walk, into the golf course at 15 and then I walk out and it's right there. And I'll be honest with you, it's not as good of an experience when you're taking a shuttle, even if it's a media shuttle. No. Every day. But so I had enough access. I was walking around. I was trying to assess what was going on with the tournament. I saw some amazing golf shots. I saw Chris Gotterup. I was on hole 6 when he almost had a hole-in-one on Thursday. I mean, it was like an eighth of an inch. I was on 17 when Ricky Fowler cranked one on the green on that par 5 with a 3-wood, I think, and it was within 2 feet of the cup. It was one of the best shots of the tournament, and I was told by someone who was with Ricky, because there were some members that were inside the ropes that got to walk around with players as a benefit of being a member at Belle Reve. And Ricky's like, yeah, nobody even cheered for that. And, he wasn't really in contention, and that was maybe part of the problem. Wyndham Clark, who ended up being the winner, even though it went down to the wire, he hadn't birdied a hole the whole day until the last 3. A lot of people don't like Wyndham Clark, all right? He's got a bad reputation. He trashed the Oakmont Country Club locker room in 2025. He's got a little bit of a frat boy, bad boy image. Bryson DeChambeau had that for a while, and he turned it around. But there were, when I was watching yesterday, people actively rooting against, not just rooting for Rory, but rooting against Wyndham Clark, which I didn't really think was fair. I like the guy. I didn't have any problem with him. I wanted drama. Somebody asked me yesterday morning, are you rooting for someone? I'm like, I'm really not. I think the Gary Woodland story is amazing, but I just want to see a tight tournament, and that's exactly what we got. I mean, that thing was not over really until 17 yesterday when Wyndham and Rory came through. It was just outstanding. So we're going to talk a little bit about it with Frank Cusumano later, and Dan Reardon's going to wrap up things as well. I saw a lot of folks out there. Senator Schmidt was out there, and the governor was out there, so a lot of really, really great turnout for this tournament.
I was going to say that, from just watching it on TV, it made you very proud to be a St. Louisan, to see it looked so beautiful out there.
Yes.
It was just amazing.
Yeah, the course looked great. And they, I like that they said from St. Louis, Missouri. They didn't say from, Ladue or wherever that's technically located. So it was cool. Really, we looked great. I think that the crowds, the galleries were amazing. I think the players react to that. They know that this is a great sports town. Now, let me talk about Gary Woodland, because this guy, he's an amazing story. And I don't know how many people know about him. He's a KU grad. That's the only thing I have against him. But he's 43 years old. He's out driving these young bucks sometimes. He had a 2-iron into the green at 17 after like a 340, 50-yard drive the other day that was just incredible for that guy who had brain cancer and surgery. Now, he has some PTSD from all of this, right? So that's one of the things that makes his story so amazing. He's on, and, as much as fans tend to be quiet, there's still a lot of distractions on the golf course. You have other holes that are wrapping up, so crowd reactions are up. You have, some people that are, I will say this, and this was so embarrassing, and thank God it didn't interfere, but on the second hole on Saturday, my phone was on, and luckily I was far enough from the green, and they weren't about to putt, that really nobody heard it. But I was like, oh, my God, and I instantly turned the volume down because that's the worst thing that you want. But I wanted to play a little Gary here because he makes it into the top 30. What happens now is the top 50 goes to the top 30. We'll kind of explain that with Frank and Dan later on. But this guy hasn't been there since 2019. Now, he had a great, PGA championship when we had it here in 2018. But his story, again, is just incredible. And the emotions got a hold of him yesterday.
Caught on 18. Yeah. What was kind of going through your mind? And
that it's over with. Yesterday was a lot for me. There was a lot of noise. Obviously, the energy out here is amazing. The crowds are massive. A lot of Mizzou people out there yelling, but I tried to block it out yesterday, and I couldn't do it. It drained me. Today, I tried to embrace it. So I'm proud of myself for coming with a different mindset today than I did yesterday. And I played outside of one really bad shot. I played beautifully today. So I'm glad this week's over with, but I'm proud of where I'm going next week.
So let me talk about that bad shot because I actually was coming through 9 at the time, and I can't. Ethan, do you remember who Gary was playing with? Sometimes I can't remember who this was. So he tee shot on 9 goes right middle of the fairway by the bunkers, which is exactly where you want to be, right? So I was following those guys. I was following Gary for a while just because I wanted to see his group, and his story is amazing. And, he wasn't getting heckled by Mizzou fans. There was a lot of support for Gary Woodland. I was really impressed because people really love him as a player. So he was playing with he's playing with Colin. So Colin Morikawa hits his tee shot. I'm mid-fairway at hole 9. I'm thinking, oh, where's Gary's tee shot? Waiting for it to come up. Sometimes they go in the bunker and you can't see it. And what he did, I don't know if any of you guys saw this. Ethan, did you see it?
No, I did not. I don't think so.
So his tee shot on 9 was with a hybrid, all right? And he hit it. This is for amateur golfers out there, if you don't know about this. He hit it not really even past the ladies' tees. And I'm not even exaggerating this. Dan Reardon said it might have been the worst professional golf shot that Gary Woodland has ever hit in his life. So listen here.
Slake, what does that mean to you?
That's I'm going to say it's impressive.
He'll talk about the shot here.
Where I've been, for sure. There's definitely weeks out here where I didn't even think I'd be here this week. And to get to next week, I haven't done it in 6 years. With everything I battled this year, I'm super proud of myself, I can tell you that.
Hate to ask, but what did happen on that?
Here it is.
I don't know. I really don't. My coach Randy calls it an oops. I think I was trying to get on top of it, trying to hit a little lower. I've been hitting it nice. I was shocked more than anything. I told my caddy, I think I just topped that into the water, but I'm proud of myself for rebounding because I could have let it get away pretty good.
He could have let it go real quick because that was, that's
so
one of the more.
happened?
He topped the shot. In other words, his club hit the top of the ball. It rolls. It skips into the creek that's right there where the crossing is for the fans at night. It was unreal. Professional golfers don't hit shots like that. It is to this day, especially after 5 days at a professional golf tournament, stunning to me that these players don't, even on occasion, hit fans with their tee shots. I'm not talking about, the ball that's in the air that comes down and hits you by the green or even on the fairway. I'm talking about, something like he did yesterday. Luckily, his miss was straight. It was dead straight, but it didn't go very far. And, you think about, look, I'm just telling you, that's a moment that every amateur can relate with, Fred. We've all done that multiple times. I used to do it every damn time I went to the tee. Luckily, I've been a lot better and I've gotten away from that. But I loved hearing him react to that because, again, that could have been disaster. He's only at hole 9. He's got a whole, back 9 to contend with, and he recovers in an amazing way to get to the final 30 in the Tour Championship. So a lot of fun, a great weekend for St. Louis overall. I thought it was outstanding. I mentioned the Jim Nantz interview that Frank did. We'll play that here in just a little bit when Frank's on, or probably maybe in the 5 o'clock hour. It's a good audio cut of the day as well. I'm trying to see if there's any notes, too, because I was making some notes about some of the things that I saw out there. There was one thing that got irritating. Like, the fans were outstanding. Everyone's respectful. When I first got there yesterday, I think I was on 16, and there was a big gap. Every once in a while, there's a big gap between players coming through on, hole to hole. It seemed to speed up late in the day, but sometimes you had to wait a while.
It
right?
was odd. Yes.
So there's this dude I'm talking to a couple fans. They were from Kansas City, and there's this guy that's on FaceTime call with his daughter for like 15 minutes. I can tell you everything about this girl. She's got a daycare job. She's worried about it. She's not making enough money. I heard her whole life story there, right? And I'm like, dude, I wanted to say something, but I didn't. Finally, when they hit their tee shots and were walking down the fairway, his buddy kind of gave him a hug, goes, dude, shut up maybe, okay? Because there's golfers coming down. Yeah. Like, why do you think all he had to do was step back like 20, 25 yards by a tree and take that call? But he sit there with everyone else around him listening to his stupid call for 15 minutes with his daughter, who's kind of a mess, by the way, based on what I heard. We're coming back.
On the roads, the worst of it right now appears to be a vehicle fire. And this is eastbound 6440 at Timberlake Manor. Now, the fire appears to be out, and this is kind of on the right-hand shoulder and the right lane. So just be careful through there. It is causing just a little bit of a delay in that area. Now, other than that, first of all, let me mention that 55 is back open. It was a nightmare this morning. Fred had to endure it, and it is all okay now. And westbound 40 at this hour looks good out of downtown. There's a little bit of volume at Prospect. 70 westbound, some moderate volume at Zumbel. And that's about it. Now, 55 is slowing just south of 141. That due to road work, but we are quiet on the bridges. 5570 eastbound is jammed at 203. That's due to road work. And eastbound 64 is lined up at 159. Sue Thomas with traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Man, I could talk about game day men's health for a while after this last 6 days with running around a golf course and trying to have energy. Maybe you're someone who does not have the energy that you once used to and you want to do something about it. And game day has what they call the game day difference. And there really is a game day difference. You have other clinics. There's competition like in everything else. But this is a men's health clinic built rather, they say, for every journey. So they've been growing across the U.S. and Canada. If you're interested in TRT, and it could be injections, I'm very curious about Matt Lawrence over at the game day locations in Chesterfield and O'Fallon can kind of walk you through this. And his staff is absolutely world-class, top-notch. They have their own pharmacy as well. They have testosterone pellets, which offer a slow release for consistent hormone balance over months at a time, and you implant them beneath the skin. So that's one of the options for you at game day. And it's not only TRT. It could be peptides and vitamins, hair loss, ED solutions, all kinds of options for you. Great services, a great office experience, their own pharmacy, as I indicated, just a great world-class facility. And it is, like I said, the game day difference. So if you want to experience that, and an hour visit that's free where they take your blood work, come back with results, give you a specific plan, book an appointment today. Go to the website, GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Check out the clinics in Chesterfield and O'Fallon at Game Day Men's Health.
The fact that the United States has once again moved from military threats, saying that it will strike and so on, to reviving its old plans shows that they are truly desperate and have no solution when it comes to the great Iranian nation. Therefore, they keep bringing their old plans back onto the scene.
Well, that's the Iranian response to the latest moves by the U.S. Here's Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, earlier today announcing this.
In the Second World War, D-Day marked the historic beginning of a campaign with our allies to target and drive the enemy from its positions, including those in third countries. Today, in that same spirit, we are launching an economic onslaught against Iran's financial connections around the globe. Our objective is to sever every economic lifeline that sustains this tyrannical regime until Tehran stands alone.
I thought we were doing some of that already, but that was what we heard from the White House today. Chris Ruddy is back with us, the founder and CEO of Newsmax. How are you, Chris? Welcome back. It's been a little bit, I think.
Mark, great to always be on with you. So, a lot going on in the world.
Let me start with the war. I want to get into some of the polling and the DSA nonsense, et cetera. But your thoughts right now on the latest move announced by the Treasury Secretary. You know, I think what's happening is Trump's threatening to bomb. Maybe there are more military attacks. You have the nations in the region that are saying, please don't do this and do something differently. And now we have more economic sanctions, which I think by, every account have been very successful earlier in this operation. But I think people are losing their patience, and the president's actually exerting more patience than I've ever seen in his life, maybe.
Well, I think there's limitations the president has right now. I think he's a little bit in a weight game. We have a story on Newsmax that he reposted to his Truth Social last night, which was the Iranian parliamentary speaker was in Baghdad, gave a speech, and said, we're starving, we're hungry, the economy's falling apart here, we're in trouble. And you don't get that on the press here. They just want to keep saying the Iranians are winning. They're not really winning. They're in desperate, dire situation, as our story on Newsmax says. So the president's difficulty is the Strait of Hormuz. They have enough manpower, military power, drone power, that they have been keeping it relatively close. Now, the number of ships going through might be around 20 or 30 a day, but it used to be 120. And so that's what the president's dilemma is, that he has to get that strait open for the good of the world economy, if not just for the United States.
But, Chris, he's been trying to do that. And, again, some of the – it's interesting what you just said about the media not covering this, because if you go back, I would even say to the beginning of June when some of the economic blockades were taking effect, I was even hearing on CNN. They were reporting these are very effective. We're hearing from people inside of Iran, even the elites. They're getting crushed by inflation, by everything that's happening. And then that whole narrative went away. It's gone, even though I think the economic pressure has been very successful. Now, this is another, re-emphasis on that. But if we don't have results from this that kind of move us in a direction of, maybe finishing off this whole, situation, then where are we?
Well, I think the president has two options right now. Either he could walk away and do nothing, and there's some people that think he should, but that would cede control of the strait to the Iranians. They're a rogue, crazy regime. We don't hear a little bit more about them. And the second, he's going to have to escalate to secure the strait, not maybe a full invasion, but there might be some military action, including some limited ground troops. And unfortunately, that's probably where we're heading on this. He, is cognizant of the fact the oil prices have gone up. Gasoline is hitting Americans. It's hurting him for the election. He's willing to take the pain on that. But at the same time, they want to increase the sanctions on Iran and make them pay a big price. They've been spreading mayhem and murder throughout the Gulf, Persian Gulf, behind numerous terrorist attacks in Lebanon, in other Arab countries for years. They've been funding Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, interrupting commercial traffic and commercial activities. So the president's the first guy to come along and say, hey, we're not putting up with this anymore. And so I give my hat off to him. I think there have been a few errors along the way, but they're moving in the right direction.
Chris Ruddy is here. He is the founder and CEO of Newsmax. Let's talk about our friends in the DSA and the Democrats. This has been quite the gift to people like me and probably to some hosts at Newsmax. A little, bummed out that Francesca Hong lost in Wisconsin. But, this is an interesting moment, whereas history tells you that the midterms will finally fall or likely fall in the Democrats', favor. There's a window here, I think, that's open for maybe a little bit more competitiveness because of the nutty, crazy kooks in the DSA. Your thoughts on that and how they kind of might affect the midterms, Chris?
Well, sometimes you don't get what you wish for, right? And you regret that because the Democrats, DSA folks, are radical left. They are taking over the Democratic Party. We are hoping that voters sort of focus on what they're doing. Again, the media is giving them a pass, not talking about all of their radical ideas, focusing on Trump. And we're seeing some worrisome concerns, Mark, in the polls. In Texas, for instance, Tallarico leads Paxton in a number of polls. And he's a far-left woke guy, pretend to be conservative on some issues. But he's far left. And you're seeing El Sayed is leading in some polls in Michigan.
Well, two things I would say about that. What we saw earlier in these primaries is that, and I've even defended polling quite a bit in the past, but the polling was way off. But the Texas thing concerns me only because, I think we've all been around these situations, whether it's Beto O'Rourke or others, Chris, we're like, okay, Texas might go blue this time, right? And it just never happens. But I'm a little shocked that, and I think maybe this is because Paxton has, a lot of things in his background too, and he brings issues to the table that are not good for Republicans. So maybe that's why that one's tight. But my God, if Texas goes blue in that election, I still have a hard time believing that's going to happen. That's pretty significant.
Look around the country where a lot of states are now open to contention. We think, Susan Collins in Maine is hanging in there. North Carolina looks like it's going to go Democratic. I was in Iowa recently, and Ashley Hinson is running there as a tough race. They're saying other states could be very tough. Alaska, for instance. And a lot of it's being driven by the poll numbers that show that the public's angry with Trump, angry with the Republicans. They shouldn't really be. The numbers are pretty good in the economy. Trump inherited a mess. He's done a pretty good job turning things around in a short period of time. But, like inflation that we saw in the Biden can't be fixed overnight. He did a lot of peace deals around the world. We're stuck in the Iran situation. I think he'll prevail. But, we got to, the Democrats are not the better alternative. I know people are angry. And you see it in his approval numbers where the people that strongly disapprove of him way, way outnumber the people that strongly approve of him.
Do you find in the polling, when you dig in, do you find the, whether you want to call them the MAGA base, the loyalists, the 20%, whatever the number is, are they peeling off at all?
I think there's some disenchantment with the president's team. Some of the issues they're seeing, they're not happy with everything that's going. There's some people that don't like the war in Iran, right? Mm-hmm. They said the president campaigned on stopping endless wars. Now we seem to be in one. I'm not sure that's the case. They're not giving them enough time, but economic issues, interest rates remain rather high. Some of the issues on public appearances, for instance, the crypto businesses, there's some polling data showing the public's not happy with that. Abortion is a very big issue for evangelical supporters of the president, and yet the administration is taking a very pro-abortion approach, supporting mail prescriptions, in the mail prescriptions for abortion drugs. Which is strange that they're doing that. So there's some dissatisfaction, and I think that is not helping the administration. They need to focus on their core issues and core constituency.
But, Chris, you know this guy. I mean, he doesn't like to lose. He's got to have a pretty good idea of where he is right now with the polling and with, dissatisfaction on these issues. So I'd have to think that here after the holiday, he's going to try to turn this around a little bit. I mean, I've been predicting for months gas prices are just not going to go back down to where they were, and I think we have a pretty good indication of that. So you're going to have to sell them on some other things that, to your point, I think have been positive in the economy. Good Lord, look at the stock market alone has been rocking, but the messaging has to be there outside of DSA bad, DSA crazy.
Mark, you're a good political strategist. I like what you're saying, and it would be good if people paid attention. The truth is, the Republicans will spend a lot of money, the president, on getting his message out. It'll become a little clearer as we get down to the wire. Usually they say, September 1st is when people start making up their minds on things after Labor Day. And you don't want to be in a situation where you're too far behind the eight ball.
Yep.
And right now, I think the president's in an okay position, but I think we need to really He's going to do a lot more rallies, I hear. He wants to speak out on it. And, look at the border. He literally fixed the border just by arriving at the White House. The number of illegals coming in just went to almost like a tiny number. And so I think he has a real shot of winning some voters. But remember, he's not on the ballot. His voters are not going to come out necessarily.
Right. Yeah, that makes a big difference for sure. Chris Ruddy, great to have you back. I know things are rocking at Newsmax. You got someone in the briefing room now, right? I don't know that you had that before with the Biden administration, did you?
Well, we've had for many years, but they're called on much more. I might mention, Mark, two things. One is people can download the free Newsmax app on their iPhone, Android, and watch us any place in the world. We're now on the New York Stock Exchange. Check us out, Newsmax. We always say join the revolution. They can read more about us at newsmaxinvest.com.
That is awesome, Chris Ruddy. Thank you so much for checking in this afternoon. We'll talk again.
Perfect.
All right, we'll see you.
There is an accident eastbound 70 before Tucker, and at one point it had multiple lanes blocked. Right now they've moved it off as far to the right as they can, but there is a jam behind it that goes back past Salisbury. Now eastbound 6440 is lined up at Timberlake Manor. There was what started as a vehicle fire there. It looks like the fire is out, but the right lane and the right shoulder are blocked. So a little bit of a slow go through there. Now, westbound traffic is starting to line up. Hampton, out through McCausland. There was an earlier accident southbound 270 near Ladue Road, and that still has a little bit of a delay there. Southbound 270, also slow, anywhere from Gravois down through 55. And on the Illinois side, at least westbound 64 is open. But eastbound has that just slow down approaching 159, all due to road work. Sue Thomas with traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
I talk about Susan L. Ward a lot. She's a family practice attorney here in St. Louis, been doing it for a long time. Look, the bottom line is a lot of people want to know about fees, right? How much is this going to cost me? Can I afford it? And what is the, what's the benefit of paying a lawyer a bunch of money when this might happen or that might happen? Well, one of the things that they'll tell you at the law offices of Susan L. Ward is one of the most valuable services that they offer is the consultation. So there's no charge for a 30-minute consultation with one of the team members. They'll try to answer some of your questions, but also provide you with advice for the future. Now, some questions can't be answered because they may involve further discovery or legal research, but they're going to make sure that they can kind of guide you through that. And in the event that you retain their firm, the initial consultation provides an opportunity for you to meet the staff and, maybe meet Susan and the people that will help you and assist you throughout your case. That's a very important step. And you can take that first step by calling the office. And by the way, they can do that initial consultation on the phone, so it doesn't have to be in person. 314-783-9400, the website, stlfamilylaw.com. The focus on family law and the emphasis on you, Susan L. Ward. And this portion of the show is sponsored by Jerry Kelly, heating, air conditioning, electrical, and plumbing. All right, so we have more drama off the court at WNBA games. This time, courtesy of Enes Kanter Freedom. He's a former NBA player that has declared for the WNBA draft.
I loved it.
And he was wearing a black shirt that read woman, noun, adult, human, female, as he was attending a WNBA game at Wintrust Arena, which is, where the hell is that? Is that what the United Center is called now, or is that a different place?
I don't know. The image that stays with me is him standing behind the women with this enormous wingspan.
I know.
And it just looks so,
Well,
that doesn't just say, this is why there are men's and women's sports. Good grief.
Okay, this is where they play for DePaul University, men and women, and then the WNBA. I was thinking that's not the Wintrust Arena, so it's got to be smaller. Yeah. Anyway, he's at Wintrust Arena. And there's something that happens here. I'll let you hear the play-by-play here because he gets into it with a different player from the Chicago Sky. Apparently, Caitlin Clark, it was the Fever playing the stupid Chicago team. What are they called? The Sky? Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know my WNBA teams.
That's fair.
Okay, so the Fever's playing the Sky. Caitlin Clark hits a three. Enes Kanter's behind the backboard, and he starts to, kind of get into it and cheer her on. But then something else happens.
And right before the break, this was the scene inside Wintrust Arena after Natasha Cloud got that bucket. She wanted her voice heard.
So she was yelling at him. She had posted a message to social media after Indiana beat Chicago 113-90, saying every trans person is a part of her community and she will love and protect them. So he's obviously drawn a lot of attention because he's getting into the draft or trying to point, to this issue as fallacy, if you will, where the WNBA cannot really define what a woman is. So here's what he said.
Sophie Cunningham shot a three, and I put my hands up to celebrate, right? Literally a couple position later, Natasha came back and started screaming and yelling and said, she's not going to sleep with you.
What?
I was like, I am not trying to sleep with her. I'm just here to protect women and support her. And then obviously after that, she started yapping and she started to walk towards me. And literally I just got up and then I was like, I'm just here to protect women, and that's all.
So the whole sleeping allegation. And by the way,
so weird.
I said Caitlin Clark. It was Sophie Cunningham who hit the three. So he's escorted out of the building. And the player is yelling at him. He's escorted out of the building. He's kicked out. Here's the coach of the Fever, Stephanie White. Has been I have not been a fan of hers throughout all this.
Just have to ask about having to deal with this again in another game as you guys are getting done playing a great basketball game, but another time where we're talking about this and not what's happening on the court.
I mean, I think it's important that people like you guys in this room don't give it any gas, right? Like it's a social media thing.
I think it's more than a social media thing. And it's something that's important to a lot of people in this country. And this is really crazy. I had this, I don't know if Heidi Harris, she was filling in for me last week, if she covered this, but this is stunning. And I love this guy's bravery. His name is Matt Calkins, and he was a sports columnist at the Seattle Times for 11 years, and he resigned last week. And he wants to explain why he resigned. He says, I wanted this column to run. I didn't think it would, but I felt obligated to try to get it in. Toward the end of last month, before the Seattle Storm hosted the Indiana Fever, you remember this, what happened, right?
Yeah.
We talked about this quite a bit. In fact, this is kind of what kicked off. Look, people like me have been talking about this for a long time, even related to the WNBA. But let's face it, what happened at that Seattle Storm game with those two young girls, I think that put this into a little bit of a different category, and different people started maybe paying attention and changing their mind. So what Matt says is, I spoke to people attending a rally in support of Sophie Cunningham outside Climate Pledge Arena. Sorry, just to say, that's the first time I think I ever said that, and I don't think I can ever say it again without laughing. Climate Pledge Arena. The Fever Guard had recently taken a stance against biological males competing in women's girls sports, and a few dozen folks showed up to express their gratitude for her position. One of them was 16-year-old Annalie Wilson, who had lost to a biological male in a track and field race in 8th grade and was holding a sign reading, "Thank you, Sophie, for speaking up for girls." By the way, I did not know that little part of the story about Annalie Wilson, that she had lost to a biological male. She was there with her mom. So what Matt says is, I didn't know if I was going to write something at that point, but after she allegedly got cussed out by a Storm co-owner during the game, I felt like I had to weigh in. One thing that Wilson emphasized to me at the rally is that she wasn't anti-trans. Another student athlete named Frances Stout, who said she endured daily verbal abuse after refusing to play against a biological boy in a basketball game, echoed Wilson's sentiment, right? So that was the thesis of his column, and you can still read it, even though I don't think it got into print, that supported the separation of biological females and males and saying it doesn't automatically make you transphobic, so let's stop throwing those labels around. He says, I sent a draft after talking to my editor the morning of Friday, July 31st, telling him there was no rush to run it. He told me later that day that he and others were looking at it, but that it wouldn't be ready for Sunday's paper, okay? Sunday's paper is a pretty big deal, right? Monday night, I got an email saying that his boss was hoping to talk to the top 2 newsroom editors about it on Wednesday, okay? This is a very easy story to do. There were 2 girls sitting on the sideline of this game, and they were simply wearing T-shirts, and one of the co-owners of a WNBA franchise started cussing them out and made one girl cry. Yeah. I mean, that's a news story, all right? That should be covered. And by the way, at first they didn't, but ESPN did actually cover that aspect, and I think they were forced to do it only because you had the owner of the team that was involved. So back to Matt here. He says, Monday night, I got an email saying that his boss was hoping to talk to the top newsroom editors. Wednesday, no feedback had been given to me. Thursday, my editor informed me that it wasn't going to run because I didn't tell him I was doing this in advance. Matt says, I didn't buy this reasoning. If that were the case, the piece would have been killed on the spot, not passed through the hands of multiple editors over several days. My response? To resign on the spot. And he said that may come off as an emotional decision, but this was exactly what I was prepared to do. This, after all, was one of several columns of mine that had been spiked at the Seattle Times. And I've mentioned this before, and I don't get it. I really don't. I don't know why this is the case in sports journalism, all right? This guy's just trying to tell the truth.
Right.
He doesn't have to be on one side of the issue or the other. He can write a column about what happened and say, look, he's basically saying the common sense thing. You could support these young women and not be transphobic. You can still support someone's right to be whatever they want to be.
Yes.
And don't hate them and don't be disrespectful. I don't support their mental illness. That's just me personally. But they won't let him write the story. So he says that one of the other pieces that got spiked was something he wrote questioning whether players for the U.S. women's soccer team were really the victims of discrimination in their equal pay lawsuit, which they weren't, by the way. Another was a more general column on cancel culture in sports. The last, written shortly after George Floyd's death, implored people to listen to state champion basketball coach Mike Bethea, a black man urging the public to not stereotype cops. The common theme? All of these challenged prevailing newsroom narratives and likely would have triggered the outrage mob. Think about that for a minute. Think about that. We don't have that here at, I can vouch for KMOX. It's a smaller newsroom. You don't have the outrage, club. But I guarantee you they have it at the Post-Dispatch. I don't know if I told you about this, but on Wednesday, it was Tuesday, whatever the day was that they had the Clydesdales at Belle Reve, I was standing right behind Ben Hochman from the Post-Dispatch, and I don't know if he knew it was me, but I so wanted to engage because that wussy blocked me on Twitter over this whole issue of biological girls playing against biological boys. And I just wanted to say, hey, Ben, I think the incidents and the events of the past few months have really vindicated me. Why did you block me, you wussy? I think I would have used a different word. But I didn't do that. I did not do that. All right, look at that. That's maturity.
Yes,
that's growth for me because I'm telling you, I wanted to hand it to that guy because he's just, blech. I don't like anything about him. He's a terrible writer. He's not a good person. He thinks kids should be hopped up on puberty blockers and hormones, and he doesn't even have. Here's what you do, by the way. It's so stupid. He gave me the satisfaction of knowing that I got to him by blocking me.
Yeah.
That's just dumb. So he's dumb, too. But anyway, back to this. Matt says, I've always thought it was a columnist's duty to generate discussion on the most hot-button issues. To avoid such topics was to leave the reader shortchanged. I guess in the end, I didn't feel like I could do my job properly anymore. Right now, I'm in the tenuous position of trying to defend my resignation without sounding like a malcontent. So let me say I'm very grateful for the 11 years I had at the Seattle Times. The talent there is immense. The editors let me have a lot of fun with other stories. I also realize where the brass is coming from. This is frightening, though, okay? He says the mob is frightening and does not forget. Lots of seemingly brave souls have submitted once activists got their hooks into them. If I had more people depending on me, perhaps I'd act similarly. But in thinking about this decision, I kept going back to, this is an interesting reference, an Albus Dumbledore line, Sue. Maybe it's just because J.K. Rowling is such a champion in this area. We must all face the choice between what is right and what is easy. And Matt said, to be honest, I'm scared blankless right now. I have no idea how the next few months or years are going to play out, but that fear beats the indignity of being muzzled. The plan for now is to keep writing in this space. Maybe that will spawn a new career. He's on Substack, by the way. Maybe I'll be a dental assistant in 2 years. I genuinely don't know. All that's certain is that I'm done holding back. The best things in life are free, speech being at the top of the list. So there's a sports journalist who's on the other end of this. And by the way, doesn't sound too radical. I don't think he's like a Trump conservative or a MAGA guy or anything like that. He just basically wanted to tell the story of what really happened at that Seattle Storm game. And the activist and the agenda journalist in his newsroom, after 2 weeks of going through hoops. Think about that. He writes the story. They spike it. They spike it again. They tell him they're not going to run it because he didn't tell me he was doing it. Well, you know what? That's what happens with news and with opinions. You actually write about them in reaction to what's happening. You don't write the piece before it happens, but that's what the journalists at the Seattle Times and the Post-Dispatch and the Washington Post do. They know their story, Bill Whitaker, CBS 60 Minutes, before they even do it. They know what their story is going to be, and if it doesn't fit the narrative, they don't want any part of it.
Vehicle fire eastbound 6440 at Timberlake Manor, and they've got the right lane blocked through there. No flames at this point. It looks like they're just trying to work on the vehicle itself. And we've got a slow go that goes back through Clarkson. Now, westbound 40 slow approaching Hampton. It's a little bit of volume at 270, and then it lines up again out at Prospect. Now, eastbound 70, there was an accident, and this time it's just before Tucker. They've got the right lane blocked through there, and that's created a jam. Westbound traffic isn't bad. A little bit of volume out at Wentzville. Eastbound 70, a little slow, headed for Wentzville as well. Now, southbound 270, it's moderate volume, but it's pockets from Ladue Road down through 21. And we look great on the bridges downtown. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Hey, I want you to go straight into the Retirement Advisor Group. Here's their number. Make an appointment today. They're still there at the office. 314-993-9494. Say, hey, I heard about a guy talking about you on the radio. I want to know a little bit more about your philosophy in safely linking to the market, making sure that after saving all these years in my 401k that I can lock in the gains. And Bob and Tammy Kershaw on the team at the Retirement Advisory Group, they'll respond to you. They'll sit down with you. They'll offer, their best advice on helping you guard your golden years. Now, I bring all this up, and I recommend that you do this one-on-one because we just wrapped the seminar a couple of weeks ago. We do 5 a year with the team. Another one's coming up probably late September, early October. But in lieu of that, and because you don't want to delay, especially on financial decisions, schedule a meeting, go one-on-one. If you go to their website at retirementkey.com, you'll see the tab that says register. Usually that takes you to the link where you can sign up for one of the seminars. In this case, you can just go in one-on-one to the office. Tell them that we recommend that you do that. They're the official financial planners of this show. Bob Kershaw, Tammy Kershaw, and the Retirement Advisory Group. I got a couple of sports stories that are beyond the world of sports that are kind of interesting here today and rather revolting and disgusting, too. See, you have one of the co-owners of the San Francisco 49ers. This guy is named Jed York. So his family's worth an estimated $8.5 billion. He was arrested on Sunday morning for trying to pay $140 for sex at a trailer park in Ohio.
Oh.
I mean, he responded to an advertisement Sunday from a known prostitution website in that particular area, and this was in East Palestine, Ohio. He was taken into custody by an agent from Mahoning Valley Human Trafficking Task Force who had orchestrated the sting operation. So they got his mugshot out there. I don't know why they have pictures of the trailer park that have snow on them. I don't think that they probably have snow. Maybe they do because no, it's
Depends
Ohio.
on where.
No, there's no. They
not
don't
right
have
now.
snow. But I guess that was the most recent pictures they had of the trailer park. So he was named CEO in 2008. It's been owned by the family since 1977. Now, he was born in Youngstown, Ohio, so he has connections. East Palestine is about 30 miles to the south. But are you kidding me? That, do you go to the trailer park because you think if you go somewhere else, you're going to be recognized or someone's going to know who you are? I mean, that's just stunning to me that someone can be that stupid. But
wow.
There you are. That's what men do. Men are stupid, I guess, in that way. Women do enough, but, man, men really do stupid things. And then there's this. This is kind of interesting, too. So, Lane Kiffin has been probably one of the more controversial coaches out there, both in the NFL and college ranks. He's gone back and forth. He has had a reputation for, just behavior, but he also wins games and he recruits kids and he gets things done. Of course, he was at Ole Miss, Sue, and he went to SEC rival LSU following the season last year. It was kind of controversial. So the story today, this is an ESPN story. And by the way, the quarterback for Mizzou is one of his top recruits from 2 years ago who was hurt last year. So Kiffin went with a different quarterback. But there's a little Mizzou connection to this. So there's a guy who is named Walker Jones who co-founded the Grove Collective, told a podcast called Assorted Crackers that the FBI searched for bugs in the football offices at the Manning Center once Kiffin bolted for LSU after guiding, because Mississippi went to, the college football playoff. They were 11-1, and he ditches out.
I see.
Remember,
what
he
the
ditched
what?
out at the end of the season, right? So he says, we actually had the FBI come through and walk the building for bugs and for everything, he told the podcast. We knew kind of what was in Baton Rouge, and we knew how they operated. I remember getting on my knees and looking underneath the desk, like checking for, is there some sort of bug in my office? And when he was asked why he was looking under his desk, Jones says, trust me, you don't know this guy Kiffin like I do. I mean, and he's got that reputation.
Good
But the
grief.
fact that they swept for bugs in an NCAA head football coach's office, where are we taking college sports?
Stall reported southbound 170 at 6440. Watch for that on the right side. Biggest jam we have right now is eastbound 70. There was an accident before Tucker on the right side, and that has created the delay there. And then eastbound 44 is slow from the Poplar to Tucker as well. So a slow go right in front of the arch grounds at what we call the depressed section. Now, westbound 40 is slow. It's approaching Hampton out through McCausland. Eastbound still slowing at Timberlake Manor. Right lane is blocked. There was an earlier vehicle fire. It looks like a camper. And then westbound traffic lines up right at Prospect. Eastbound 70 a little slow east of Forestell. And moderate volume along southbound 270 in pocket. 64 down through 55. By the way, we look fine on the bridges if you're headed into Illinois. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
I can't wait for tomorrow night's Tech Talk Tuesday with George Rosenthal because I've actually collected a fair amount of stories I want to ask him about. He always comes up with topics. I have my own topics for tomorrow. Some of them are certainly AI related, but look, we do this every Tuesday at 5:30. It's been an amazing success. It's funny because originally we were going to do them every 2 weeks, and then there's just so much content. We could probably do it twice a week, 3 times a week. But look, I want to talk to you about what ThrottleNet does for businesses, helping you as a business owner navigate technology. For over 25 years, they focus on security strategy, keeping companies productive. And you know, what makes ThrottleNet different, you might ask? Well, first of all, you can hear the difference when George is on Tuesday nights. But what he'll tell you is cyber threats are not just a big company problem. You have small, mid-sized businesses being targeted every day. You get a data breach or a ransomware attack or someone presses the wrong button. It's going to cost you money and your reputation. ThrottleNet's the only IT company that backs their cybersecurity with a $500,000 cyber protection program. If you'd like a free baseline IT security audit, if your business relies on technology, this is a great first step. And what business doesn't rely on technology? ThrottleNet.com/971 for a free baseline IT security audit. It's a great way and a very simple way and a free way to get clarity on your cybersecurity risk. ThrottleNet.com.
The clock is ticking. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. That message from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying the U.S. is putting countries and other entities on notice to cut economic ties with Iran or face financial consequences.
We are going to hold everyone accountable, and this is economic asphyxiation of this regime.
Iran remains defiant, warning any support for the new sanctions will be considered an act of war.
The Secretary of Iran's National Security Council writing today, quote, if the economic war continues, not a single drop of oil will be exported, neither through the Strait of Hormuz nor from anywhere in the Persian Gulf. But the pressure is beginning to tell in Iran. Inflation is skyrocketing. The availability of goods is dropping just as fast.
Fox Fox's Jonathan Hunt in Tel Aviv. The U.S. Supreme Court just clearing the way for an executive order restricting mail-in voting. However, the decision appears to leave room for more challenges in court, with time running out to make changes ahead of the midterms. Closing arguments expected this week at the trial of Lindsay Clancy, the Massachusetts mom charged with murdering her 3 young children. The defense claiming postpartum psychosis.
The court ended for the day with one of the prosecution's final 2 experts, forensic psychologist Dr. Kirk Heilburn. Now, Dr. Kirk says after interviewing Lindsay Clancy and reviewing her records, he testified he does not believe Clancy killed her 3 children because a male voice commanded her. He noted experiencing a temporary auditory hallucination and never before or after is very, very rare. Instead, Dr. Heilburn testified he believes Clancy was attempting suicide and deliberately wanted to take her children with her.
Fox's Brian Yennis at the courthouse in Plymouth, where at one point today the judge rejected a defense motion for a mistrial. America is listening to Fox News.
I move mountains for a living. Literally. That means I don't carry hand lotion, and when it comes to serious heartburn, I don't mess around with anything but Rolaids Max Strength. Its dual-active formula has 1,500 milligrams of calcium carbonate and magnesium hydroxide that relieves heartburn fast. And the best part? The roll fits right here in my pocket, so I can get back to moving mountains.
Rolaids spells powerful relief. 1,500 milligrams is our highest amount of antacid per tablet. Read each label. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
When I hit my 50s, I felt like things were slowing down.
This is Sandra's Metamucil story.
I started taking Metamucil for digestion, but had no idea it would impact so much more. Not only did Metamucil help me feel more regular, but my heart health saw the benefits too.
Metamucil, one simple routine, 4 health benefits. Digestive health starts here. Go to metamucil.com for more details.
Well, big morning that I slept through. I'm just going to tell you I was so tired.
Ugh.
6th grade for Alexa Reardon today.
Oh, yeah. How'd she do?
I don't know. She hasn't answered my text yet. This is the
That's
day, though.
probably a good sign.
You guys can probably confirm this. I believe it's federal law. I think it's federal law that if you have a child that is starting in school, that you have to, it's like, again, mandated to post a picture of them on social media, Facebook, because that's what today is all about. And I did that on my Instagram and my Facebook stories.
Wait.
So you can check that out. But yeah, first day of 6th grade.
Did you make her the little board that says, Alexa Reardon, 6th grade?
You mean like a little frame?
Yeah, like
with
that. You know
AI
that people
or
do.
something?
I
No.
want to be a blank when I grow
Right,
up. Yeah,
no.
all that. That's what you do.
You know, I did see a family at the bus stop this morning. It must have been about 6:30 when the middle school bus was coming by. And I could tell there was a new middle schooler about to get on the bus. And the parents were right there behind them.
Oh, yeah.
And that girl was not having it.
Oh, she was.
She was like, get back.
Oh, she was embarrassed by her
yeah,
parents.
embarrassed, yeah.
So Becky drove her this morning. I think she took the bus home, which maybe she should be home by now. They get off pretty early. But I'll be very curious to hear what the day was like. I'm just telling you, like, you guys, do you remember ever being excited for school to start?
Never.
Oh, yeah, I was.
Really?
Well, you were nervous, but I mean, you're kind of excited nervous.
Oh, I wasn't.
No,
not me.
I'm like, oh
what,
my
you were
God.
just mad?
I hated school.
I hated school.
I just hated
Wow.
it. Every day of its existence.
Okay.
Maybe like when I was in 3rd grade and stuff, it was okay. But
Well,
once you had to start learning stuff, that I didn't like the learning part of school. I don't think.
Oh, the learning, but you mean the whole point?
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't like that very
Yeah,
much. And,
okay.
then you had to stick to a schedule, and there was not as much fun factor. Plus, I was a fat, dorky kid, and I didn't have any any friends or anything like that. Played football one year just to, see if I could get
How
a
was
girlfriend.
that?
Well, that failed miserably,
Well,
and I didn't really even like that. I wasn't very
you got
good at it.
beat up, yeah.
But I mean, really, I did not. I could not. What the irony is, and I don't know, Fred, if this is true with you. I mean, I'm not lying. I hated school. I hated high school. Could not wait to get out. I loved college. Like I took college seriously. Like I had to have a 3.0 to get into the J school. So I got 3.5 my first semester. Didn't quite make it there the second semester for a variety of reasons, one of which involved an arrest, but that's another story for another time. I've shared that before. But no, I took it like I studied. I went to the library. I did everything. A lot of that was because I had to have that 3.0. And if I don't get into J school, then I'm in trouble, right?
The Lou Thomas the theory was if you go off to college, that's great. You have to maintain a 3.0. And if you don't do it in 4 years, you pay for everything.
There you go.
Right.
Now, I remember in second grade, my second grade teacher, Mrs. Koibian, who had to be like 110.
Who doesn't like Mrs.
She had to be
Koibian?
110 years old.
Oh.
And she was teaching us multiplication tables for the first time. The hardest part of learning multiplication tables was I had to fold a piece of paper into 9 sections. And it was like, come on, give me some help here.
Oh,
so
it was awful.
Middle school for me was I went through kindergarten through 6th grade, and then we had 7th and 8th grade. Well, it was weird. I had both. I had 7th and 8th grade when I went to Gemini Junior High. We were a Mustang, and this was in Niles, Illinois, outside of Chicago. So I'm in 8th grade, then I go into freshman year in high school, right? At Maine East High School in Park Ridge, Illinois. Come here, nope. Going back to junior high.
Oh, that's
Parkway
weird.
West, 6th, 7th, or 7th, 8th, and 9th. It was middle school at the time. So they've changed that over the years. But my daughter loves school.
Is brutal.
And she seemingly, after some orientation last week, seemed very excited about her classes. She was running me through all of this over the weekend. So
what is her school
we're off
mascot?
And running.
What is she called?
What is that? It's the Rockwood South, Fred. I don't know.
You look that up. Well, you got to know that.
I know.
of course,
should
was
know
a
that.
pioneer, and I think they just
I
take
think
that
it's
all the way
Falcons.
through.
I think it's the Falcons because they basically have the exact same logo as the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh.
Yeah, which is kind of weird. So I want to wrap up just a couple of things. We're going to talk with Frank Cusumano and Dan Reardon, their thoughts on the BMW. Frank did, let me just play this just for a quick minute because I would encourage everyone to watch this. I put this up on my Twitter at Mark Reardon, KFTK, or if you follow Frank. He did, Fred, did you see his interview with Jim Nance?
Yeah, I did.
It was fantastic. It was really, really good. Here's just a little portion of that.
First of all, I know you have such an affection for our city. What did you think of the way we supported golf this weekend?
It's almost beyond description. I tried my best to frame it with the right words, but the last thing I said going off the air was, well done, St. Louis. You don't see this everywhere. It just felt so big. They raised the event to a wonderful level, to a major championship feel and vibe, and it's just a credit. It's just such a great sports town. It's known universally as a great baseball town, but I got to tell you, the golf part of it as a golf town, it's huge. It's right up there with the best.
Oh, my God. I would agree with
Love
that.
that.
The support that this tournament had all 6 days, including the practice rounds, was really, really amazing. We got real lucky with the weather because the weather the last couple of days could not have been better. So it really was a lot of fun out there. And, let me just tell you a couple of things that I don't know if I almost screwed up on something or not, but I was a credentialed member of the media for this event. We did the PGA in 2018. We did the show live out there from the practice range for 3 days. It was a blast. Didn't quite have the resources to do that. So I made it clear early in the year, if I'm not doing the show, I'm going to take off and I'm going out there to watch the golf tournament. So, I had my media credential, which doesn't get you a whole lot of access outside of in the clubhouse. They have a media room and there's a little food in there. And there's the biggest part of that is there's huge TVs and monitors and the people who are filing stories on a regular basis. The print guys can be in there and access information, as it's happening. And, I'm really kind of there as someone who does a radio talk show host, is a radio talk show host and a fan of the game of golf. So when I'm out there, and this was, when you guys heard me on Wednesday, that was the day that Eric Schmidt was in the Pro-Am, and I got to heckle him and interview him, and I was taking some pictures that day. Well, then on Thursday morning, they send you an email from the PGA that says a reminder about the credentialed media access. And this kind of made sense because I think it was on Tuesday, my first day out there was with Mike Colombo, who is Mike's with Fox now, right?
Yes.
He was at Channel 4, but he I don't know him very well, but we were having a great chat, and he said, yeah, we're going out tomorrow for the Pro-Am following, and I can't remember if they're going to follow Ozzy or maybe even Eric, but the rules were they couldn't show anything else. They couldn't show the players. So technically, the rules, this is what's weird. Sue, as a fan, you could, and you were a fan, right? You were not a credentialed member of the media.
No.
You could post any picture that you wanted to.
Yeah.
You could take a shot of Rory. You could put it on Instagram or Facebook or on anywhere. I technically was not allowed to do that.
because you're a member of the media.
Because of copyright.
Interesting.
So when I reread the thing, I'm like, oh, I don't want to get kicked out of here and have my credential revoked. So I'm trying to, play by the rules, and I'm just posting pictures of the crowd or,
Right.
But so yesterday, I posted very few images or pictures, and they were all positive, nothing negative. I'm sure that's part of what they're worried about is just the reputation. But I just think it's so ironic that 155,000 people can post whatever they want all over social media, but the 100 members of the media covering the event can't do that unless they have special permission. And it's just silly, but it is what it is. They protect their organization. They have an extremely well-run operation. I mean, did you go to the merch tent?
Yes, it was insane.
Did you buy anything?
Jeff did.
Yeah,
my brother did.
I bought quite a few things, but that thing was actually in the PGA merch tent was bigger, believe it or not.
Oh, I'm not
I don't want to say it was
surprised.
twice as big, but it was bigger than that one.
I am not surprised. And it's a well-oiled machine as well. And then, you're looking for something. Jeff wants a golf shirt, but he'd like Bell Reeve and BMW on
that's
it.
kind of tough to
and
get both.
you had to get further back to, it's just interesting.
Did you smell how nice it was in the tent?
Well, what's funny about that is
yeah.
I didn't really notice it after, because we had an interview with, I can't remember, Jim Epstein is his name,
Yeah.
I think, from this great scent company that provided some of the diffusers and everything, because we talked to him on Wednesday. The bottom line is that the research, the psychology tells me, and it makes sense, that if it smells better, you're going to spend a little bit more time in there, right?
Yeah.
If it smells like the dumpsters outside of our building, you're about to just lose your lunch. But no, I didn't really notice that. All I noticed
That's
was
how they get you.
Here's what I'll tell you, because I did not go to the merch tent on Saturday, Sunday. I figured it was much better to go earlier in the week before sizes were gone and stuff like that. But
no, they had plenty. There were women out there replenishing like nobody's business.
I believe you, Sue. I just wasn't sure.
I get it. I get it. But
they
did that well too, Mark.
I would love to know the numbers just from the merch. I really would. Because, Fred, you're talking about, like, what's the cheapest item?
Oh, $75.
Yeah, it's like, the shirts are from
yes.
$80 to like $180,
Yes.
and then there's the long sleeves and stuff. Oh yeah, it's crazy. So I'll tell you what I did, and I think this turned out pretty well. Is look, I'm out there by myself. I don't have tickets, right? I just have my media credential. So I was meeting some people out there, but Becky really wanted to go. And my wife is very sports-oriented. She loves professional golf. She likes to play golf. She doesn't play as much as she used to. So I knew I had to get some merch for the wife and the daughter, right? So I'm looking, and I know what my wife likes, and I know what I like, and I'm looking. The women's selections were not great.
No, they
right?
were.
They never are.
No,
I don't understand it.
I guess, I don't know. I was thinking to myself, I wonder if it's better at the LPGA for women, and this is just men focused, but it was super man focused.
It was very man, and I guess that's the crowd. But still, there was some Lululemon stuff that was branded. But I found this this jacket, and it was not cheap. But I'm like, okay, this is like the only thing.
Cheap.
So I get this jacket, I bring it back. She's like, and this is what I was hoping she would say. Well, wouldn't it make a lot more sense to return that and then to use the money for a ticket for Friday? So this is on Thursday when this happened. I'm like, yeah, actually it would, because we can get a ticket for right around that amount, just a grounds ticket, right? And then you can go to the tournament, right? Great idea, brilliant, right? Let's go to the merch tent. Let's get a refund for that.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
They would only do exchanges, but I was the benefactor of that because I got another hat. So they wouldn't, and I get it, but so then we ended up spending more money than we wanted to because she went, but she had a great time. I mean, we really did, and it's so funny if you look at. I did put this on Instagram stories. You look at the number of steps I took, like last Monday. I think I took about maybe 100 steps. By Tuesday, it was like 3,000, then 6,000, and then 11,000 on Friday. Sue, you said you did 20,000?
No, 15.
Okay, but that's a lot.
But that's the only day we were there, and so we walked the first 9, and then found the tent the
Yeah.
BMW
Which is a
Pavilion.
lot nicer.
Sat in a chair with a breeze, and I thought, I'm not moving.
Much more comfortable. Yeah, if you look at if I would show you my Apple Health right now, you'd have thought I was dead last Monday, and probably today
Right.
too, based on my movement.
Accident westbound 270 at Lindbergh. Now, this one just coming in, and they're saying it's in the right lane. I don't see a delay, so I'm not sure whether that is actually there or whether it just happened and I don't see a backup yet. But we've got an accident eastbound 70 before Tucker. It's been in the right lane for quite some time. It's created a jam there. Southbound 170 is slow, and it's from near Olive down through 64. We've got westbound 40, mainly moderate volume, Kings Highway out through McCausland. Eastbound is slowing at Timberlake Manor, where we had an earlier car fire. And then westbound 40 slowing again, especially out at Prospect. Now, eastbound 70, we've got an accident reported before Wentzville Parkway and a jam behind that. Now, on the Illinois side, we look fine on the bridges. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Let's talk about Michael's Flooring Outlet at igotfloored.com. A lot of times I try to guide you into particulars of the products that they have. Let me talk about some of the services, because they are absolutely St. Louis's and the St. Charles area's most trusted service provider. They can do installations, of course. They can consult on your design. They can do custom area rugs. They can do area rug binding, carpet restretching. Candidly, I need a little of that in my basement right now. All kinds of flooring repairs, grout cleaning and repairs, subfloor repair. The list goes on and on. But they can also help you with a beautiful project, putting new flooring into your home, whether it's soft flooring or hard flooring that meets your specific needs. The technology that they have in the flooring is amazing. You can even go online right now to igotfloored.com and visualize your room, take a picture of your room, and then choose from one of the products from the gallery and, select that product to see what fits best on your floors. I think it's easier or better to do this in person. You can order samples, have them delivered straight to your door, or go to one of the 3 great locations in Old Town St. Peters, Darting Prairie, and in West County on Olive, and grab some samples, check them out, take them home, make a selection. 3 locations, open every day except for Sunday. igotfloored.com.
These allegations are deeply concerning.
Does the president have any comment?
We're not going to comment.
It's not clear messaging.
No.
And now, Sue's News. Brought to you by Sue.
Okay, I want to say one more thing about the PGA this weekend. One of the things I wondered, since Belle Reve is just kind of plopped down in a really nice neighborhood, is what did the neighbors do while all this is going on, right? Their streets are busy. And at one point, walking that first 9, you can see they have a residence entrance. And they have everybody.
Right.
Yeah, so you come through. The residents have their own specific entrance. I mean, they have thought of everything.
Yeah, well, some of the residents are members. I think a fair amount of them are. But yeah, they were trying to make the members as happy as they could because they had to take the golf course away from them for like a month. But
if your house was there, and we saw people had put up a tent and invited friends over so they could watch from up above.
I saw a couple of really. There was one, I can't remember where it was. It was kind of hidden unless you kind of looked behind trees, and they had like a whole bleacher set up.
Oh
back
my
there.
gosh, genius.
It was cool. Yeah,
genius. And of course, they have the means. They're people of means, Fred.
Yeah, I know.
They had the means to set up their own bleachers. The rest of us would be like, well, here's a lawn chair. Good luck to you.
They could afford 2 jackets.
Yes, they could.
Probably.
Show offs. Happy National Peach Pie Day. Man, that sounds good to me. Peach pie, Fred.
I'm an apple pie person. That's what
have
I
you
would
tried
prefer.
a peach pie?
Oh yeah, I have.
Okay.
I'm still trying to figure out the difference between peach pie and peach cobbler. I like both.
Oh, you know what a cobbler is.
I don't
it doesn't
really know
have
if
a
I do.
crust.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more of a cake situation.
All right.
Or
I like both.
Maybe a little top, but not a bottom crust. Anyone?
I'll do the peach pie with apple or with ice cream.
Oh yeah. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
It's also National Self First Day, so it's like
It's every day for me.
Are
you kidding me? What are you talking about?
Well, it's a powerful reminder that prioritizing your physical, mental, and emotional health is not a luxury. No. It is not to be a source of guilt. And I thought, well, that's perfect.
Makes me feel better, Sue.
Yeah, good. I'm here for you. And it's National Waffle Day. I love a waffle. Fred, isn't that your thing?
Waffle is my specialty.
Okay.
Alexa's been doing a lot of waffles lately.
She asked me one day in this studio if I preferred the pancake or the waffle. Yeah. And I actually had to think about it.
Yeah. She likes that question.
Yeah, and I thought first that it was pancake, and then I went back to waffle, and that made her happy.
Well, what's funny about that is she would always do, when she was smaller, she would always do pancakes, Sue. And now she's total waffle.
And I talked to her about it. Yeah, I said, well, it keeps butter better in those little things, and she agreed. Yeah,
but here's what she does, though. You got to understand what she does. She puts Nutella on those waffles.
That's not bad either. On this day in history, of course, 157 years ago, in 1869, Cornelius Swarthout of Troy, New Jersey, is the man who patented the waffle iron. That's why it's National Waffle Day.
That's a great name.
Yeah, Cornelius Swarthout of Troy, New Jersey.
Do we know why he called it the waffle iron?
No.
Did waffles exist before the waffle iron?
I don't think they did.
All kinds of
I don't know how you would make
questions.
them if you had no waffle iron. And then 94 years ago today, gosh, it was 1932 when Amelia Earhart became the first woman to make a nonstop flight across the U.S. She flew from L.A. to Newark, New Jersey. It took 19 hours and 5 minutes. I think they're still looking for her plane, the one that obviously that went down. Fred Noonan was her flying with her, but I think they haven't found either. Every now and then I read a story that says we're closer.
Right.
Yeah,
and then it never turns out to be.
Happened.
By the way, just for confirmation here, no, waffles did not exist before the waffle iron.
Knew it.
Because the cooking tool itself defines what a waffle is. Kind of what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. Thank you for double checking. And this is sad, but it was 15 years ago, and it seems both longer and shorter than this. That it was 2011 when Steve Jobs resigned as CEO of Apple because of his health. That was 15 years ago today. All right, several celebrity deaths to report, unfortunately. Shelley, how do you say her last name? Fabars? From the sitcom Coach?
Shelley Fabre?
Maybe Fabre, yeah.
And she was married to Mike Farrell from MASH. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and she was also Francine Webster on One Day at a Time, if that helps you. Anyway, she passed away. Michael Wright from the Five Heartbeats and Janie Bradford, who co-wrote this song. She co-wrote Motown hit Money. That's What I Want.
The best things in life are free.
Obviously, I think a few incarnations of that song that may have kept her royalties going for a while, right? Oh, she must have been pretty old.
Yeah. She probably is.
Okay.
But they did not tell me
All right.
how old she was in this story. Spider-Man, Brand New Day, topped the box office for the fourth straight week. It is now the third highest grossing movie of all time in the U.S. Spider-Man, which has now made over $854.9 million in North America, will soon surpass Avengers Endgame to become the second highest grossing domestic release. And then the record holder is currently Star Wars The Force Awakens at $936.7 million.
I don't understand it as a cultural phenomenon. Look, the movie was okay. I didn't love it. I like Tom Holland in the role. I actually like the earlier films, but this is really quite something. These numbers are staggering. This has been an incredible summer for Hollywood. It really has. And as I indicated, I think last week, it's younger people that are driving
it.
I heard 2 younger people this weekend say it was the best ever.
Oh, God.
I've heard that from people, too. So they really look, I thought it was average, but, that means, and that also kind of tells me that multiple viewings are involved.
Well,
people
that's
are going
true
back and
too.
see it again.
That's
right?
true, too. This was the second year for an event that China puts on called the World Humanoid Robot Games in Beijing. Did you see this?
I did. I saw some of the video. I think we talked about this with George Rosenthal last year.
Okay, it is super creepy to me, but maybe that's just me. They've made huge strides in robots, and they had one that ran the 100-meter sprint faster than Usain Bolt.
Wow.
Yeah. It's serious. The robot did it in 9.39 seconds, and Usain did it in 9.58. So they have these humanoid robots participate in all kinds of Olympic-like events, tennis, soccer, racing, fighting. And by the way, the U.S. will not allow foreign-made humanoid robots to be imported for national security reasons. But China is essentially showing off, saying, look what we can do. Interesting. And it's, ugh. And finally, in Sue's News, we have today's random fact. The real name for Chilean sea bass is Patagonian toothfish. They changed the name to sound more appetizing to Americans.
I believe they made the right call on that one. Soon, it's wrapping up a Monday edition.
I'm Dan Loney with Your Money Now. Equifax has agreed to a proposed $100 million class action settlement that it miscalculated credit scores due to a coding glitch. Approximately 4 million consumers during a 3-week period in 2022 were impacted before the error was corrected. A judge must still approve the settlement. Equifax did not admit any wrongdoing as part of the settlement. Box offices in North America have set a record for the month of August. Data shows $1.1 billion in ticket receipts so far this month, and that surpasses the record from 2016 at $1.019 billion. This year, the industry is aided by the success of Spider-Man Brand New Day, which has brought in $855 million in North America, and is set to surpass Avengers Endgame shortly. Wall Street with an up-and-down day to start the week. The Dow Industrial Average was up 140 points, ending the day at 53,417. NASDAQ was off 200. S&P 500 fell 21. That's Your Money Now.
Are you an adult with uncontrolled moderate to severe Crohn's disease symptoms and still packing a backup bag of clothes? Just in case? Skyrizi Risankizumab Riza can help you take control of your Crohn's. Feel significant symptom relief, including less abdominal pain and fewer bowel movements at 4 weeks. Plus, Skyrizi is proven to help people achieve remission and visibly improve damage of the intestinal lining. Individual results may vary. Skyrizi is a prescription injection medicine. Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines. Liver problems leading to hospitalization may occur when treated for Crohn's. Ready to take control of your Crohn's? Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 prescribed biologic in Crohn's disease.
Control is everything to me.
Learn more at skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI.
think I name-checked one of my colleagues and friends earlier, Hannah Gibbs. She was out at the BMW, but she also had a girls' weekend at Innsbruck, and I know this because I was following her on social media, and I want to talk about Innsbruck. I don't do a girls' weekend, although this day and age I suppose you could, but we do staycations out there, and it's the perfect getaway close to home. It's not as long as the Lake of the Ozarks. It's not as congested. It's an hour from St. Louis, like less than an hour. If I leave here for a weekend visit to Innsbruck at 6 o'clock, I can be out there on the premises by 7 o'clock. All kinds of lakes with fishing, hiking trails, cabins of all sizes. Now, you can do a staycation. You can build a home out there. You can buy a home out there. You can really kind of get the flavor of Innsbruck by just maybe even going out and playing the golf course. Beautiful golf course up there. We call it like one of St. Louis's best-kept secrets for over 50 years right now. They renovated the full-service restaurant, bar, and coffee shop, so you can, I always tell people, get a golf cart, go out on the golf cart, get some coffee in the morning or some donuts or something at the restaurant, go back, plan your day. We do dog-friendly properties. They have a pool at the Lazy River, summer camps for the kids, all kinds of fun stuff. Horseback riding, the list goes on and on and on. Innsbruck. Find out more at innsbruck-resort.com. This portion of the show is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating, Air Conditioning, Electrical, and Plumbing.
They will see the green flag waved by President Trump. We have green. We are racing in the Freedom 250.
I was kind of wrapped up with golf yesterday, but the Freedom 250 was going on in the nation's capital. It was Interior Secretary Doug Burgum who got to shout out, "Gentlemen, start your engines," and it was Trump waving the large green flag up and down. You had a 1.7-mile track that went between White Marble Monuments and the Smithsonian. I saw some of the video from this. It looked a lot of fun. This was like the last final major event planned for D.C. as part of America 250. Our friend, race car driving legend Kenny Wallace with us this afternoon, even though he's a NASCAR guy. I'm going to talk a little bit about IndyCar. How are you this afternoon? Plus, we just wanted to catch up with you because it's been a while. How you doing, man?
Well, Mark, I'm doing good. I follow you on X. You looked good at Belle Reve, and I must say, as bad as we talk about the city of St. Louis, which is appropriate because they deserve a butt chewing every once in a while, Belle Reve showed out, and you all looked good out there. Made me happy.
It was a great crowd, and then even downtown with the Savannah Bananas and the Salad, it was a great weekend for St. Louis. And to your point, you're right. We beat up on our own city sometimes, but we got to be a showcase to the nation and to the world with the BMW. And, I'm going to have Frank Cusumano on here in a few minutes. Kenny, if you haven't taken time to watch his interview with Jim Nantz, it's really good. It's only about 7 or 8 minutes long, and I would highly recommend that. What have you been doing? Have you been traveling this summer?
I've been traveling way too much. I had a good schedule, and then all of a sudden it was like racetracks. And, I just got back from Vermont. I was in Kalamazoo, Michigan, Berlin, Michigan. I've spent a lot of time up in Canada. It's just been one thing after another, and it wasn't planned, but it's turned out beautiful, and I'm finally home. I'm going to stay here for a little bit.
Well, you timed it right with the weather, which is now turning beautiful, so that's awesome. What did you think? Did you have time to watch a little of that race yesterday, and what are your thoughts on how that all went down?
Yeah, I watched it all, and I do have a lot to say about it. Number one, the police said that was the very first event they've had in Washington, D.C., where there was no protest. That was shocking, and that's just some things that I know. So what happens is when you're in racing like me, I follow people a guy named Jeff Gluck, a guy named Matt Weaver, a guy named Bob Pockras. So, baseball has their media, and we have our media. And they ask a lot of good questions. So that's something that I thought was really nice. It seemed like racing is not controversial. Of course, you got pencil neck, Adam Schiff. He don't know what the hell he's talking about. He always just get that guy's a dweeb. He's a little rat, and I can't take that guy. But he just had to mouth something, and of course Graham Rahal, one of the race car drivers, surprisingly came back at him, shot him right down verbally.
Really?
On X. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't
I
see
called
that.
him right out. He said, "Hey, listen, pal, there was 200,000 people there that filled those motels up, brought millions and millions of dollars in that city. No protests, no issues, and no murders. So you should be thankful for this." Of course, pencil neck don't know what the hell he's talking about.
But I love that.
That's
That's a great response.
Yeah, it was a great response. Every hotel was sold out there. And over the course of 2 days, literally, the race car drivers said that it almost felt claustrophobic because the fans were out in such full force because they've never seen anything like this, ever.
Wow.
Literally a racetrack, around the nation's capital and, the monument in the background. And the drivers were coming down Pennsylvania Avenue, and the fans were on both sides, of the fencing.
That's pretty cool.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was good. And then, of course, I got to do my disclaimer. Roger Penske has been trying for 15 years. Roger owns IndyCar, and, of course, my brother drove for him. And I drove some races for Roger. Well, Roger Penske is very good friends with, the president, Donald Trump. And Roger Penske and Donald Trump talked about it, and of course, it got done in 15 minutes, is what Trump says on national TV interviews on Fox. So it got done quickly, and it was rave reviews. It was a great race. The weather was perfect. So finally, no rain, and that was a big deal. It was an awesome event.
We got lucky here with the weather, too, over the last few days. So now we're just a couple of weeks away from the Enjoy Illinois 300, right? The NASCAR race comes back to Worldwide on September 7th, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yep. I'm super excited about this. So, the great thing about Worldwide Technology Raceway is we've been so lucky with Curtis Francois and, the general manager, Chris Blair. And we have been gifted. This will be the third year in a row where it's in the championship. This race will fall inside, like we say in baseball or football. These are the playoffs that start happening. Now we're going to start determining who is our champion. Not very many races left. The season, and as everybody knows, kids are headed back to school, a little cooler temperatures, and that means the end of race season is a couple months away. We end, I think, towards the end of October.
And by the way, I got the dates wrong. That was I think I gave the date from last year. So it's September 12th and 13th. So I should know this because the 11th is a Friday. That's my wife's birthday. The 12th and 13th, Saturday and Sunday. I think I went back to the 2025 date. But yeah, it's huge. And look, another situation where these fans, this has had really great success because the fans have turned out. They've turned this into a whole weekend event. The kids show up. And you've been out there. So it's really great for St. Louis. And hopefully that's another weekend where the weather cooperates.
Yeah, I just want to say something. You got me thinking, and I mean this. This is very heartfelt. We get roughed up a lot, but think about what you just said. That really struck me odd. Is how great everything's been here lately. I mean, with everything, we do got it going on, and people do tease me. What the hell's wrong with your town, boy? I'm like, oh man, it ain't. It's rough in some areas, like every city, but we've got it going on, like you said, here lately, and Worldwide Technology gets to showcase the largest form of motorsports in America, which is NASCAR.
Yes.
So it's going to be a great Confluence Festival, the music acts, racing. So come on.
Let me say something about the musical acts. Old Dominion, Chris Jansen, those are names that I think people would know. There's an artist that's really blown up in the last 6 months or so that I love so much. Her name is Stella Lefty. Actually, her father is the guy that started Groupon. I mean, she comes from like a really wealthy family. But she's just a young singer-songwriter who had a song by the name of Boston that kind of broke out on Instagram and TikTok, and now she's got a whole album out, but she's going to play on that Sunday, so I'm excited about that. All right, Kenny Wallace, what do you think about our Cardinals right now?
Well, it's up and down, and I get it. But, they say, Kenny Wallace, you need to have patience. I'm like, tell me where they sell it, and I'll go drink some.
Yeah, I get it. Look, I think we're at the point maybe right now, I'm going to talk to Frank about this, where we can kind of start not talking about making the wild card. They're 5.5 games out. I mean, they can go on a run here and maybe get a little closer, but I don't think the postseason is in the mix for the Cardinals. But the fans know that, and the fans are educated, and we like what we're seeing from the younger players. We just hope it continues. Yesterday was a disaster, though. You had a 4-run lead, and then you give up a home run to Schwarber. Right, I know, and that's the kind of thing that I think happens when you're rebuilding like this. But look, I've been excited to see the offense. We're going to have 2 guys on this team in Burleson and Jordan Walker that have more than 100 RBIs. That in and of itself is pretty incredible.
Well, I said, when who's our new hero? I already forgot. Baez. So
Joshua Baez,
said, I said about 2 weeks ago when he hit those 3 homers up there in Chicago, I said, we got Burley, Walker, Baez, and the other guy. I said, kind of reminds me of 2004 when we had, remember the guy that would make the signs from Springfield? He'd say, Murderer's Row. In other words, our middle lineup in 2004 would just crush people. I like our bats.
Yeah.
But it's been the same for quite a while. We just can't keep them from scoring. And the old guys, I used to, call them out, but they say pitching wins games, and it's true right now for us.
Yeah, well, it's true for a lot of these teams, unfortunately. All right, Kenny, great to hook up with you. Maybe we'll hit a Cardinals game before the end of the season. We'll talk soon. Oh, one more thing I wanted to tell you. I'm going to send this to you. You and Kim need to strongly consider this trip I'm taking next May to Croatia, because I think you might really be interested. I'm going to send you the info, okay?
Okay, send it to me. Me and my buddy are thinking about Egypt in a couple years, but I haven't told my wife yet.
Oh, I remember. That's right, because Kim does not like to do the international stuff, does she?
No,
Okay.
She's afraid of terrorism. So me and my buddy go.
All right, well, I'll send it to you to see. I can make up stories about you the whole trip. That'll be fun. We'll see you.
On the roads, here's the good news. They have cleared that accident. Well, it was started as a car fire, but it was on eastbound 6440 at Timberlake Manor. Here's what we've got. Westbound traffic lined up approaching Kings Highway out through McCausland, a little bit slow at Ballas. Eastbound slows at 270, and then east of Lindbergh through Big Bend. Now, out west, westbound 40 is jammed, and it's mainly the usual. So Lake St. Louis Boulevard out through the 70 split. Eastbound 70 still slowing east of Forestel. Now, southbound 170, volume from Olive through 64. And they've cleared that accident eastbound 70 near Tucker. Still a little bit of a slow go in that area. Then we had an accident reported kind of at Cary in that area, so that's near West Florissant. And we still have a jam on westbound 70. There was an accident at 270. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Hopefully we are in a better weather pattern than we have been. But I bring it up because the power grid was really, I think, pressured here the last few weeks across the middle part of the country. I want you to get a free estimate on a Generac home standby generator from Generator Supercenter, the nation's #1 Generac generator dealer. These are high-quality generators as soon as your power goes off. If Ameren fails you, your Generac generator kicks in with propane or natural gas, and your home is fully powered. And this is a great, great place to get your Generac home standby generator because they can offer you the certified maintenance and warranty work a lot of competitors will not or cannot offer the certified service. So a free estimate is just a phone call away. They do have low monthly payments, financing available. What would you pay for peace of mind at your home? 314-499-2020, Generator, Supercenter of St. Louis.com. Tell them what we sent you along. Well, I saw this guy a couple of times out at Belle Reef Country Club in the last few days, Frank Cusumano. And by the way, I played a portion of this earlier in this hour. I highly recommend everyone take some time and watches your interview with Jim Nantz. It was spectacular. And as I'm telling Frank that and giving him high praise, Ethan Hannaford, he's just gone from the line. No longer to be seen. Yeah, and that was a pretty good. Intro, don't you think?
Beautiful.
Oh, now I'm going to have to do something different and try to dazzle him as much as I did. But that was just one of those things that I did not expect. I think he's calling back in here. I don't like moments like this, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. It's just technical difficulties, and for whatever reason, the call dropped. Let's see if we have him back. I was just heaping high praise on your interview with Jim Nantz, and your phone call just dropped. How are you this afternoon?
Everything's good. Yeah, thank you so much. He was so gracious. You'd like to think that the guys you see on TV are as nice off camera as they are on camera. And Nantz, who I've known a little bit over the years, is just spectacular. We had dinner together on Friday, and then we set up the interview, and just it was wonderful spending time with him.
It was really good, Frank. And, one of the things that you focused on, and this has been a bit of a theme even with the players, Dan Reardon had a great question for Wyndham Clark. The galleries were just amazing. We did it again, just like the PGA. The crowds were respectful. I didn't see too much idiotic behavior out there at all, or, a couple of boneheads saying something. I think some guy got arrested the other day. For the most part, these crowds were respectful. They were huge fans of golf. There were a lot of kids out there. The players were having a blast because the weather didn't suck. What a BMW championship. And it goes down to the last 3 holes yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't ask for anything more than the reigning U.S. Open champion blowing a 5-shot lead to a top 15 player in the world, and then for the U.S. Open champion to come back and birdie the final 3 and win it. And, look, there were more people rooting for Rory, obviously, because he's Rory McIlroy. But it's not like people were impolite or nasty to him. So I think it was really just a great moment. And the attendance records are insane. It's like the most for a practice round over 10,000, the most for an opening round over 28,000, and then overall 155,000, which is a
amazing.
BMW record.
It is unreal. Yep. And the next thing we have at Belle Reeve won't be for 4 years. It'll be the President's Cup. We have one this year, but 4 years from now, the President's Cup, and then we'll see what happens. It's tough because, as you know, Belle Reeve really is the only course in the area that can handle a PGA Tour event for a variety of reasons. The length of the course, hotels, all that stuff. But really, really great. And thank God, Frank, the weather turned out the way that it did, because I think that made it a lot more special and kept a lot of people from passing out on the course.
Yeah, for a stretch there, I thought St. Louis turned into San Diego, and then if you walk the course, it wasn't quite San Diego, but it was really good.
I would agree with that, yes.
Frank?
Yeah, you had to walk the course to feel that, it looked pretty good, but it was still freaking... It was
hot.
Freaking
it was hot,
at times.
Frank, for someone that didn't get to take in nearly as much of it as they wanted to, what would you say was your favorite part of the 4 or 5 days of the event going on?
Just from a golf purist point of view, since I'm a fanatic, in fact, I have a club in my hand right now. I'm on the 18th at Far Oaks. Is I just love spending time on that range. People at Channel 5 thought I was working like 14 hours a day. Well, at least 2 hours I was out at the range and just watching these fluid swings. It's like nobody went after it at all. They just club back, forth, so smooth and so effortless. So I just, the skill level of these guys is so insane, and that I just appreciated watching it up close and personal, because we don't get to see it, as Mark mentioned, very often.
Yeah, my appreciation is because, we're all amateur golfers and we hit bad shots no matter how good you are, is just seeing these guys recover, like, hitting the water and then still parring a hole or something like that, or seeing Gary Woodland make perhaps one of the worst shots of his professional golf career, topping a ball with a hybrid on 9 yesterday, which luckily he gets to laugh at because he makes the Tour Championship. But that's something you don't see every day, Frank.
Oh my goodness, was that amazing? And you are right. When they get into trouble, it's no big deal. I mean, the escapes, it was Houdini-esque. And I'm glad you brought up Woodland, because he's the guy I was really rooting for. He's the guy that's overcome so much with mental health and the brain tumor.
Story. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
great story.
And the PTSD, and boy, you talk about a guy on the range who's impressive.
And by the
Man,
way, there is no Mizzou fan out there on that golf course this weekend rooting against Gary Woodland. They were rooting for Gary Woodland, and they were supporting him. Let's talk a little baseball here. I'm on the course yesterday. I see 4-0. I look at my phone again. I see 4-0. I see the ninth inning, 4-0. Then I look, and it's 6-4, and every hit in the ninth was with 2 strikes, I understand. That's not so good.
Yeah, and you think about
2
it,
outs,
Riley
too?
O'Brien.
Yeah,
2 outs. Riley O'Brien has given up 6 runs in the entire month of August. They all happened in the ninth inning yesterday in Philadelphia. And, I guess you could second-guess Ollie for pitching to Schwarber, but then a base hit would win it. The bottom line, it was just a disastrous weekend. You lose 2 starting pitchers, you lose 3 games, and you blow a 4-run lead. And that probably just about does it for the Cardinals.
So I think just as damaging is the losing 2 pitchers as the losses were over the weekend.
Okay, what happened there? Because some of us don't know anything about that. Honestly, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Andre Palante and Hunter Dobbins both to the injured
Oh,
list
my
on
goodness.
back-to-back days. So
I did not know that.
The Cardinals go 2 years without having a starting pitcher go on the injured list, and then 2
back-to-back.
in back-to-back
Wow.
days. And now, Quinn Matthews will fill one of those spots, but Frank, I'm not sure where they're going to go for the other spot. Who is going to fill that 5th spot over the next couple of weeks for the Cardinals?
Well, Jerpy down in Memphis is a candidate. So they don't have anybody up here. They probably will make it a bullpen start, like 4 or 5 guys, but there are no more options. Quinn Matthews is the 4th starter. Now they need a 5th.
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, now what? You're 5.5 out on the wild card. It was fun, kind of while it lasted here, but now it's going to be a little painful, maybe the rest of the season. But we know that the rebuild is happening. Hey, how did the soccer team do over the weekend?
They won again, so the unbeaten streak is up to 12, their highest in history, but they also lost a really good player in Edu Leuven. He's being shipped to San Jose, and a lot of people are disappointed about it because he's one of their most popular players. He wanted a contract extension, but he is 29. He may not fit their style, but on the surface you think, wow, they've lost 2 really good players in a short period of time. So we'll see.
And the Cardinals are back home this week, right? But they're off today.
Yes.
Yeah, the Baltimore Orioles and Jackson Holiday come to town.
And what kind of season is he having, Matt Holliday's son, one of his sons?
Not as explosive as we thought. He's a guy that I think is going to be a great player, but he's battled some injuries, and he's not quite realized the potential, but he's going to be special.
All right, Frank, we'll talk on Friday afternoon. Have a great week. Enjoy the 18th hole. Birdie that hole there that you're on right now. No pressure or anything,
I'm
right?
just about to do it as we speak. Do you want a live play-by-play?
We'll see. No,
I am
yeah.
20 feet away.
All right, let's go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
3, 2, 1. Rolling toward the hole. Rolling towards the hole, but I come up too short.
We'll take the blame, Cusumano. We'll take the blame. Good effort, though. We like that. All right, we'll see you. Take care. That's awesome. That must be nice. Just doing the show from the golf course. It's pretty spoiled that way. But yeah, if you haven't watched the Jim Nantz interview, that guy is just so uber cool.
Yes, he
and
is.
professional.
Yes.
And there's so much warmth there.
Kind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really incredible. And he does such a great job calling golf. I
can't imagine.
I think the whole team. I mean, look, I listen to a lot of PGA Tour radio because of being in the car a lot. And I know people think I'm crazy, but their coverage is so good. CBS's coverage is so good. They really do a great job. And when you see the course setup, you saw it. Cameras everywhere, microphones, all kinds of fun stuff. Think about the fact that they pick all of that up and they have to go right to the Tour Championship and do it all again here next week.
On the roads today, we've had some issues. Now, if you're headed into Illinois, there is some volume on eastbound 6440 headed for the Poplar Street Bridge. The other bridges look fine. 64 on the Illinois side, jams approaching 159. That, of course, due to road work. Eastbound 70, there is an accident just past West Florissant, and that's created a delay. Westbound, there was an accident at 270, so a delay there as well. And northbound at 270 lines up headed for 70. Now, westbound 40, it's approaching Kings Highway out through McCausland in pockets out through 270. And then it jams up again out west, mainly Lake St. Louis Boulevard out through the 70 split. But we've got eastbound traffic, too, east of Lindbergh through Big Bend. Southbound 270, not bad. 55, not bad. But, boy, there's some volume on southbound 141 between Gravois and 21. This report brought to you by Midwest Gun Works, and that's who you can trust. For nearly 3 decades, firearm enthusiasts have trusted them. For hard-to-find parts, expert gunsmithing, quality gear, your next build or repair starts here. Shop MidwestGunWorks.com or visit them in Peevely, Missouri. That's Traffic 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
We have former United States Senator Jim Talent coming up. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is unveiling Operation Economic Outcast for Iran. We're going to find out more.
Tens of thousands of foreigners could soon lose business and tourism visas. Simely Silasera, Fox News. The State Department planning to revoke B-1 and B-2 visas issued over the last decade to foreign visitors seeking asylum in the U.S.
The State Department spokesman says the department is coordinating with Homeland Security to identify and revoke the non-immigrant visas of foreigners who came to the U.S. claiming to be short-term visitors, but then filed for asylum to stay permanently. Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau says asylum is not supposed to be a loophole to circumvent immigration law or extend tourist and business visas. The revocation could apply to as many as 200,000 foreigners, but is likely to face legal challenges.
Fox's Jared Halpern at the White House. The Supreme Court has cleared the way for President Trump to move ahead with his executive order restricting mail-in voting ahead of midterms, but the decision appears to leave room for additional court challenges that could slow the order. And as some states are starting starting to send mail-in ballots to voters in just a few weeks. Time's running out to impose major changes. The missing wife of a Massachusetts police officer has been found dead in a case now considered a murder-suicide.
Worcester police officer 57-year-old Kurt Solomon was found killed in his home last Tuesday. Law enforcement said it was likely a domestic incident and released video of his wife, Karen, walking down a street in shorts and a shirt. They began an extensive search for her and warned that she may be armed and dangerous. Monday, Chief Paul Saucier says they got a call from some people reporting that they'd seen a body in the woods, and they now believe it is Karen Solomon.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. A handgun was recovered at the scene, but police say it was not her husband's service weapon. Wall Street stocks drifted to a mixed finish as the markets await a speech by Fed Chair Kevin Warsh on Friday. The Dow up 140, the Nasdaq minus 200. America's listening to Fox News.
I move mountains for a living. Literally. That means I don't carry hand lotion, and when it comes to serious heartburn, I don't mess around with anything but Rolaids Max Strength. Its dual active formula has 1,500 milligrams of calcium carbonate and magnesium hydroxide that relieves heartburn fast. And the best part? The roll fits right here in my pocket, so I can get back to moving mountains.
Rolaids spells powerful relief. 1,500 milligrams is our highest amount of antacid per tablet. Read each label. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
When I hit my 50s, I felt like things were slowing down.
This is Sandra's Metamucil story.
I started taking Metamucil for digestion, but had no idea it would impact so much more. Not only did Metamucil help me feel more regular, but my heart health saw the benefits too.
Metamucil. One simple routine, 4 health benefits. Digestive health starts here. Go to metamucil.com for more details.
Well, after a great 6 days at Bellerive Country Club and the BMW Championship, we're going to wrap it up with Dan Reardon at the bottom of the hour. Some stories that kind of emerged in the aftermath and heading in to the Tour Championship. And we set all kinds of records here for the PGA,
Good.
which is just awesome. Yeah, something to be proud of. And again, I mentioned I wasn't part of this, but the Savannah Bananas, that whole thing is just amazing.
It is.
And, you had Matt Carpenter and David Eckstein, a couple other members of the Cardinals that showed up over the weekend as well. And I know they were dazzled. So it was a good sports weekend, if not an unusual and unique one here in St. Louis. Today, when I was starting to pay attention, because I was out of the news business for a while, Sue, as you might imagine,
Yes.
I kind of didn't pay much attention, which is why I was unaware of the Cardinals' injuries with their pitching staff. But Scott Bessent held the news conference today to announce something called Operation Economic Outcast.
In the Second World War, D-Day marked the historic beginning of a campaign with our allies to target and drive the enemy from its positions, including those in third countries. Today, in that same spirit, we are launching an economic onslaught against Iran's financial connections around the globe. Our objective is to sever every economic lifeline that sustains this tyrannical regime until Tehran stands alone.
He says basically there's only a couple choices here for Iran.
Iran now faces a very clear choice with only 2 paths before them: complete global isolation and a subsistence economy, or a path back to normalcy with an opportunity to rejoin the global economy. Today, we are launching Operation Economic Outcast to foreclose every other option available to the Iranian regime.
All right, let's get some reaction this afternoon from former United States Senator from Missouri, Jim Talent, who's back with us. Hello, Jim. How are you this afternoon?
I'm fine, Mark. Hey, I know you want to talk about Iran, but why is it that every time Bellerive
hosts a tournament, we get good weather for the week. I mean, it's pretty incredible, isn't it?
The 2018 was a little warm, but last week was great. Frank
okay.
mentioned
Almost.
it. If you were getting hammered in the sun in some of the bleachers, it could hop. But I thought it was great. I mean, compared to what we could have had in St. Louis, right? You know that it might have been miserable. I think I saw one person need medical assistance because of dehydration. I think they would have been on call nonstop out there picking people up that are passing out because that's what can happen. All right, let's talk about this. I mean, one of the things with Operation Economic Outcast is haven't we tried some of this and been effective with an economic blockade? But this goes then beyond that because they're asking the other Gulf nations to participate?
Yeah, we have tried some of this. In fact, in the first Trump administration, he called it the maximum pressure campaign. It was very effective. As a matter of fact, it reduced the amount of oil they were exporting because we were really enforcing the sanctions. But no, nothing on this scale, and particularly combined with the military power, the attack, the 5.5-week attack, and then the blockade. It's the coordinated use by a great power of military capability, economic power, and diplomacy in order to break an enemy. I mean, that's what it really clearly is here, and it's pretty darned effective. Now, I have not gotten through I think it's over 20-page Treasury press release on all of this today. But basically, what it comes down to is we are sending the message all over the world that if a deal looks like, talks like, or smells like Iran, just shut it down.
Right. So let me play a little bit more audio and just get your reaction. Here's what Besson said about the sanctions.
The new sectoral sanctions determinations issued today target 5 of Iran's most vital lifelines that it exploits in other countries: digital assets, technology, gold, aviation, and shipping.
All right, so this is not narrow. And by the way, I want your reaction to this, Senator Talent, because he issued a warning as well.
Any entity that facilitates money laundering on behalf of Iran will be removed from the U.S. dollar system. The clock just started ticking. These measures broaden secondary sanctions risk for anyone foolish enough to continue conducting business with this regime, and will accelerate the speed with which we pursue them.
So he's kind of talking about China and Russia there, isn't he?
Yeah, but I mean, he's also talking about the countries in the Middle East or the financial organizations in the Middle East that launder a lot of their money through which they do their transactions. The Treasury has mapped the networks worldwide and has gotten a specific list of targets of actors and businesses and countries. Treasury attachés are meeting with locals and embassies. The Treasury usually has an attaché attached to embassies. The president is making phone calls. And the two key things there were cut off from the American financial system and secondary sanctions. And the whole point of this is to say, again, if it even looks like there's an Iran connection, don't do it, because we're going to lower the boom on you. So, no, I don't think anything like this has ever been done before. It's going to be interesting to see how China reacts. They have been very careful not to let their companies get cut off from our financial system. And I think this is also sending a message to countries like Cuba. In other words, this may not be the only time this happens. So as I said before, I mean, we're breaking an enemy here and using means that really present, all told, very little risk to us.
Right, but doesn't this also admit that the military aspect of this war and perhaps finishing the job militarily is not going to happen?
Well, let me make a distinction, Mark. The point of the military effort, the 5.5 weeks, was to destroy their military capabilities. That's already happened. At that point, they decided they were going to shut down the strait. It was really stupid from their point of view. So then we really began choking them economically, first with the blockade and now with this. And so, yes, I think it does suggest that unless they act kinetically in some fashion, which they could well do, that we're not going to hit the targets. Their energy infrastructure, we're not actually going to blow them up. We're just strangling it. And I understand that a lot of people who are very hawkish about this, and I'm pretty hawkish, want us to hit them militarily in that fashion, want us to hit the oil infrastructure, electricity, et cetera. But I think the reason we haven't is we know that the threat of that is a deterrent to some of their kinetic activity. And once you do it, then you lose it as a deterrent. So that's what I think is working here. But of course, it's not like the president called me up to talk about this.
No, and I understand that. But I mean, if this, I've always been a fan of the economic blockade because I think that we had indications, although it's, not completely clear because we have limited information from inside Iraq. But I liked the way that we had shifted a couple of months ago to the economic blockade because I thought that there was, success there. Now, I think what part of the hope is to have people from within inside the regime or whatever, the movement might be organically to put a new regime into place. That was kind of the hope from afar, and it seemingly is not happening. But in this particular situation, you're actually asking for the neighbors of Iran, and one example would be the United Arab Emirates. Last week, they said they're halting all trade and financial transactions. And this is, a company that's worth roughly, it's $28 billion in 2024 with financial ties to Iran. So that's a significant amount of money. I don't know if that's what tipped Bessent and the administration in this direction, but obviously they're looking for a little teamwork here.
Yes, they are. And in fact, they're insisting on the teamwork. A lot of it, as I said, is intermediaries in the Middle East that have been doing this. But these are not like mafia or criminal. I mean, these are legitimate banks, financial institutions, organizations that have to have access to the American financial system. Now, I have to believe, you mentioned the UAE. About everybody in the Gulf is sick of the Islamic Republic. In other words, it's a little bit like it was with Hamas when all the Arabs, including the Turks, just told Hamas, look, you got to sign the agreement that you're being offered because we're sick of you. I mean, you're messing up the whole region. And I think that's happening here. So I'm sure there has been allied consultation before they did this. And what it means is their economy's already been reduced basically to barter status. Now, you mentioned the regime. We're trying to fractionalize the regime. There are factions in the regime. I mean, the civilians, Pezeskian and the others, have surfaced statements saying, well, maybe we ought to make a deal. It's the IRG that doesn't want to. But let's see what happens because, this is going to dry up a lot of what they've got left.
Well, let me ask you this. This is and I don't know who she is, Rosemary Kalanick, who is the director of the Middle East program at Defense Priorities. Now, this is in the New York Times, so that should give you a little hint as far as where it might be headed. But I thought this was interesting. She writes, when President Trump isn't threatening to make the Strait of Hormuz a U.S. territory, his administration is demanding that the strait revert to being free international passageway for the world's oil supply. The president needs to face reality. Neither of these things is going to happen. The strait needs to be reopened, even if that means Iran tolls transit through it. Now, this is the part that's kind of hard to disagree with, no matter what you think about that first part of her statement. She says the war with Iran has revealed two things. Iran cannot completely close the Strait of Hormuz. I think that's true. And the U.S. cannot completely open it. Both of those things are true, aren't they?
Well, we can't open it without doing something that we don't want to do right now. We can open it. We've opened it in the past. It would take a couple of dozen destroyers doing regular escort duty. It's relatively high risk. It depends what navalist you talk to about that. And it's an essentially defensive thing. In other words, we're escorting in and out and in and out and in and out. And how long is that going to go on? So what we're doing instead is through a standoff kind of way, we've cleared a passage in the southern part of the strait. We're getting out about 2/3 of the oil that came out before the war, and then we're supplementing that with oil through the pipelines, et cetera, which is why oil is hovering in the low to mid 80s instead of at $120 a barrel. So, in other words, we're winning this round of the engagement. We're moving oil through, and they're not moving anything through. And now we're stepping up, we're upping the ante, if you will, and tightening the grip on the economy.
I hope that's right, and I hope that works in our favor. But I do, I don't think I think I do disagree with this woman who's writing this piece saying, look, we should allow Iran to toll the strait and get things moving again. I don't think the president in any way, shape, or form is ever going to go for that. Do you?
Nobody in the region. Absolutely not. And to say that, I mean, just there'd be revolt. I mean, they wouldn't tolerate that, and that was never going to happen, and it's not going to happen. They're not going to get money out of this. What they've done is increase the risk to ships passing through the strait, which originally completely bottled up the strait. Now it isn't, because the shipping companies are figuring out, and they cooperate with CENTCOM, that yes, you actually can get product out of the strait, and there's a bunch of things they're doing, turning off the transponders. This is all, CENTCOM's got a regular conveyor belt that they're working, and then, gradually we're getting more and more out. And we've talked about this in the show before. One of the reasons this was so dumb from the Iranian point of view is it's a wasting asset for them. I mean, no matter what happens now, within 1 to 2 years, the Strait of Hormuz, I'm not going to say it's not going to matter at all, but it's no longer going to be a major thoroughfare for oil products, because nobody's going to put up with this. I mean,
why would
the
they?
Saudis are building a new pipeline, the UAE is building a new pipeline, India's changing its supply chains, and that's not coming back. So that's permanent damage to Iran because of this. As I said, the whole exercise, every phase of it, has been about breaking their national power. Which we've done pretty effectively.
Yeah, I'd be very curious. We do talk, you and I, on a regular basis. Let's see where we are, like right after Labor Day, with all this, and see what the status is. I'll be very curious to see in the next 2 weeks what that pressure results in. Jim, always good to have you on. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Former United States Senator Jim Talent.
Couple of accidents to mention. One is eastbound 70 at Cary. Watch for that. It's been blocking the right side, the two right lanes. And an accident westbound 6440 approaching 22nd Street. That is blocking the right lanes as well. So that's caused a little bit of a delay. Now, if you're westbound on 70, it looks fine out of downtown. Slowing past the airport out through 270, and then moderate volume in pockets to the west. And westbound 40, it's more like Kings Highway in pockets out through 270. Then you get a break and it jams up at Lake St. Louis Boulevard. Northbound 270 is slow approaching 70. That's all due to an earlier accident. But southbound actually looks pretty good. 55, a little slow at Butler Hill, but south of there, it's fine. And if you're headed into Illinois, just a little volume eastbound 40 headed for the Poplar. And then it jams up eastbound 64 headed for 159. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Here's a great story locally. I love these stories because they're so consistent about St. Louis public schools. And, a lot of the schools started in the last couple of weeks. My daughter started today. I think a lot more kicking in this week. Sue Thomas, Alexa Reardon started 6th grade. Very excited about that. But how about this for the start of school? St. Louis Public Schools spent more than $24 million in the past few years on renovations for buildings that are likely to close by next fall. So they say in August of 2022, close to 90%, you might remember this was called Proposition S, 90% of voters approved that. That was a $160 million bond measure for renovations and upgrades to 62 aging schools. So in the past 4 years, who says you can't trust government with taxpayer money? I mean, that's crazy, right? $117 million of those funds have been spent on building projects, including heating, air conditioning, roof repair, replacement, lead and asbestos abatement, and safety improvements. But $24 million of that went to 22 schools on the proposed closure list in the Future Ready Consolidation Plan. Yeah.
Well, obviously you can't have kids in asbestos, and if these schools weren't closed yet and still open, you had to do something.
Right. So they say they go through this, though, at least building by building, and some of the numbers here are kind of sad when you think about it. So Walbridge Elementary in Walnut Park East got the highest amount of funding of any elementary or middle school, $7.6 million. Listen to these numbers, Sue. The building is designed for 495 students, okay? You know how many they have?
Oh, no.
109 students.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, Walbridge is proposed for closure next year. Herzog Elementary, which is about 2 miles away, that's going to stay open. They have 198 students. Their capacity is 494. So you can see one of these schools is not going to make it. And it has received, this is where it's backwards. That school has received $410,000 in Prop S funded work. So look, I don't know the buildings at all, so I can't tell you, the Herzog Elementary, that was in great shape. It only needed $500,000, while Walbridge needed $7.6 million. But my God, you would think that somebody in planning, looking forward could say, wait a second, when we spend this money, and by the way, this is kind of what government does. They just blow through your money and they don't think through these things and they don't plan, right? Or they do things like, the other story that's crazy right now is Kirkwood. Let me shift to that.
Oh, that's nuts.
It is nuts. Okay, so that's just, I think what's happening with the, Prop S money in St. Louis Public Schools, it's just sad because it hurts the families and it hurts the kids that want to go to school. And I don't know why the numbers are so low. I don't know if people just moved out or they're not sending kids to school, but that's dramatically different from the numbers that they once had. Okay, but then there's Kirkwood. I love this because Kirkwood and Webster are my two favorite woke St. Louis suburbs, and they both have financial crises right now. Kirkwood perhaps a little bit more serious than just stealing a little money over in Webster. But last year, when officials discovered that the city's electric department had blown a hole in its budget and inflicted financial turmoil citywide, they set out to uncover what happened. See, this is what Seth Nelson tells me in our local paper. In June, they concluded in a report to the city council that lax oversight had allowed rampant overspending in Kirkwood Electric to go unchecked. What the report didn't say is that for 4 years, just for years prior to the crash, Kirkwood pulled millions of dollars out of its electric department and funneled the money to other places in the city. Now, I rip the Post-Dispatch a lot, sometimes justifiably so. But there, in this story here, is another good example of why good local journalism matters. Because the Post-Dispatch looked at the financial reports here, and this reporter seemingly did his job. Officials used Kirkwood Electric's money to pave streets and fix potholes. They dipped into the cash to build Kirkwood's new Performing Arts Center, which, by the way, is beautiful. They put the department $7 million in debt to help purchase a controversial public works building. So essentially, people that were speaking, in government's relatively high up positions, I think, in Kirkwood, told the reporters at the Post-Dispatch that they were treating the electric department like a slush fund.
Yes.
So Deb Lavender, who's one of the councilmen, did our eyes get a little big? Did we depend on it too much as a city? Of course, today we can say that it did. You think?
Oh.
In total, they pulled $22 million out of Kirkwood Electric. We were just kind of talking about this because Kirkwood is one of the few municipalities that have their own electric utility, right? So $22 million over the past decade. That meant when city officials discovered last year that the department had overspent on a substation by $15.6 million, there was no money left in the reserves. So they had to spend millions from its own reserves, not the electric company reserves, to cover those costs. So here's what the people in Kirkwood got. A 15% rate increase.
Unbelievable.
And they're floating the idea of raising fees at city parks, too. So, here's a guy that's quoted. Mark Goris says, too much money is being spent on projects that aren't benefiting all of the 29,000 citizens. You think? And that's what they do. So the mayor of Kirkwood is Liz Gibbons. I'm assuming that's Mike Gibbons' wife. Mike was a member of the legislature. But they kind of go into this story and they say that was a powerhouse financially. They were making money on that utility and there were profits. And I guess the mindset was, okay, we can, use some of this money because it is providing a profit. So we can use these for some things that are, positive for the community. So they built that Kirkwood Performing Arts Center in 2017. I've been there. It's really nice. They used $3 million of that, but they put the department $7 million in debt with a loan from the Parks Department to buy a new public works building, and they've extracted almost $1 million a year to pay for city street repairs. So what's the only way to do this?
Screw
raise
everybody,
taxes,
yeah.
right? Yeah, so what they're going to do, Kirkwood, you're all spoiled there anyway. You can afford it. You probably, the Kirkwood folks, they want more taxes. They wouldn't support Trump anyway. So give them higher taxes. I think that'll be the best plan.
On the roads, there was a stall reported westbound 6440 past Prospect. Watch for that one on the right-hand side. There was an accident on eastbound 70 right there at Cary, and they've had the right lanes blocked, a jam through there. Westbound, just a little slow past the airport, and then it looks pretty good. We've got volume on westbound 370 as you head for 141. We've got westbound 40 lining up. It's Kings Highway. Now, this is in pockets out through 270. Slowing again at Prospect, even approaching Prospect. And 55 southbound, some moderate volume just north of 141. And if you're headed into Illinois, we're fine. But there was an accident westbound. This is 6440 approaching 22nd Street. And the right lanes there are blocked. On the Illinois side, fine on the bridges. But 64 lines up headed for 159. Sue Thomas with traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
I was sharing this with Sue off the air earlier. I'm going to share it on the air right now. The Croatia trip that I'm hosting next spring and early summer is off to a great start. So if you are interested, I would book now because one of the great things about this trip, and I put all the details at the top of my Twitter page, which is at Mark Reardon KFTK. I've pinned the details. You can also go to definedestinations.com. The trip is May 25th through June 5th, the best of Croatia. And one of the things about this 12-day trip that's incredible is we're going to go on this Deluxe Superior MV Maritamo. It's the cruise ship. 36 guests total. 36 guests. So this is going to be very private. It's going to be our group. I have Barb and Ed from my Greece trip. John and Susan from my Greece trip are coming on board. I think my friends Fitz and Karen are going to come. We have a lot of interest in this, and it's very, very unique. And Mike knows Croatia well. He's been there many times. One of the great things about this tour is Mike Kenny, my tour guide. I've known him for about 15 years. We've traveled to Italy, to France, to Spain, to Greece. And he's just amazing in the way that he runs these trips. So we already have a great group. I mean, I'm just going to tell you, nothing against anyone else that I just mentioned. Barb and Ed are phenomenally funny. They're the entertainment for the trip. You won't even have to depend on me at all, which is good. But get at least interested in this. Go to the website, Define Destinations, or my Twitter site. It's going to be a magnificent trip. May 25th through June 5th. Best of Croatia. Get on board now. And this portion of the show is sponsored by Jerry Kelly, Heating, Air Conditioning, Electrical, and Plumbing. I was following the leaders at Belle Reve yesterday for a little while, Wyndham Clark and Rory McIlroy. I saw Rory tie it on 11, but earlier in the round, there were a lot of people in the grandstands that were actively rooting against Wyndham Clark. And they weren't loudly booing or anything like that, but they were kind of quietly cheering for misses, etc. Dan Reardon, who's going to join me in a second here, asked Wyndham Clark a question after he won this championship.
Wyndham, I'm told, going back to the Garys, I'm told that a couple of times or more today, you heard people cheering your mistakes when they happened. I'm curious, did you hear any of that the first 3 days of this week? And the second thing is, did you just assume what you said earlier? They want Rory to win, but they're not really rooting against you?
Yeah, the first 3 days I didn't feel any of that. I played with Gary yesterday. Gary being close to here, they were really cheering for him, but I felt, equally as much love. And then today, I think there's two things. They wanted Rory. And then, if you bet on Rory, he had better, you get better return on your money. And so I think that's some things that happen in golf where guys, I think some of the rooting against is because of the betting. But yeah, even with that, they still treated me great. And I just think, Rory's earned the right to be a fan favorite. So, I embraced it. I've kind of been the underdog in all of my wins, and I've just accepted that and enjoy that moment.
Well, it was a great win for Wyndham Clark. I don't have anything against him personally, Dan. I was not rooting against him. I was, as I told you yesterday, a couple of people asked me early in the day, who you're rooting for? I said, look, I love the Gary Woodland story, but I just want drama. And guess what? We got drama yesterday, didn't we? That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we certainly did, Mark. I said to Fred before we got on, he said, how was it? And I said, it's impossible to overstate how well things went.
Yeah, good answer.
Whether it was weather, conditions, or the outcome, everything was positive. But briefly, Mark, and you may be headed there, but there's a story that I don't think has moved locally that came out of yesterday, and it's because it surfaced while all the chaos was going on in the back nine. And that is Scotty Scheffler came in and admitted that the entire week he had been suffering with hand, foot, and mouth disease. His hands were blistering, his feet were blistering, his throat was blistering. He could walk all right, but it was painful to hold on to the club, couldn't practice, couldn't work out, and had to alter his pre-tournament routine. And he was told not to play. And he said, I don't like withdrawing from a tournament that I've committed to. And he felt a commitment to the tournament and the fans, and so he played.
Okay, well, two things about that. One, is he 2 years old? Because my grandson literally had hand, foot, and mouth last week. And two, I'm blaming Senator Schmidt. I'm putting all the blame on Senator Schmidt. He gave him hand, foot, and mouth. I'm going to go with that. But that kind of is incredible because he played pretty damn well. And that's kind of what he said, right?
Yeah, he finished 12th. And he said by the weekend, his hands got a little better. So as he was talking to us in the media, he said, I still have the blisters in my throat. It's just who Scheffler is. You were out there, Rory, when he got in contention, and even beyond that, Rory gets the shouts. But the name most shouted over the 4 days of that championship was Scotty.
Oh, no doubt.
And it's because there were so many young players there that just idolize this guy. And I tweeted that we're just in a really good place in the game of golf, because the best player in the game of golf is probably the best person in the game of golf, and you have to enjoy that.
So let me ask you about this, because I heard an interesting discussion on PGA Tour Radio in the aftermath of the tournament. I think it was even this morning, because even though we kind of call this the playoffs for the FedEx Cup, it's not really, it's not match play. And in this particular case, maybe it's even somewhat confusing because you're basing the top 30 that come out of this weekend not on their finishes, but on their tour earnings from earlier this year. But now, when you have this tournament in Atlanta this weekend, that is going to be the winner of the tournament wins the tour champion, right? Is the FedEx champion winner.
Yeah, there's two things in play there. One is the FedEx championship, and Scotty has already won that. He can't be caught. He's accumulated more points toward winning FedEx, so he's collected $20 million for that already. The Tour Championship is now a standalone tournament. Years ago when Tiger won at the Tour Championship, he won the event that day, but Justin Rose won the big FedEx prize. So there are two things in play. And this coming Sunday, there's really only one thing in play because Scheffler has already locked up the FedEx Cup. And now he would like to win the Tour Championship.
So the question then becomes, this is the conversation I heard on PGA Tour Radio. Are there discussions that will perhaps change the nature of this format moving forward? I mean, some of this is based on, and look, I think I'm a perfect example of this. I love professional golf. But when football starts, Dan, I don't watch professional golf, right? So they try to wrap this thing up before football season because of the competition. But you don't really have, I heard even discussion on that show I was listening to about maybe match play, where you have a field that's ranked like the NCAA tournament or something like that. Is that gimmicky? Is that something where sport is heading, or what's your opinion of that?
Well, there's no question that the format's going to change. I mean, it changed this year. We only have two leading into the Tour Championship. At one time, there were four leading into the Tour Championship. When the BMW was here in 2008, Vijay Singh won the first two events, and he had already won the FedEx Cup. He didn't even have to play.
Yeah.
All he had to do was tee it up and walk off the tee, and he was guaranteed a winner in that circumstance. So we know it's going to change. What that format is going to be, we're not sure of. It's very likely, I think you're going to see one qualifier and one Tour Championship. And as far as match play is concerned, it's a great concept, but it's fraught with dangers. They played the last time of the Boone Valley Classic, and they went to match play. And on Friday, it looked like a dream. And they ended up with Lon Hinkle playing Vicente Fernandez at Boone Valley, and they didn't rough live.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's talk about Gary Woodland and his story. It's pretty amazing. And, he came off the course yesterday feeling pretty good about himself because he makes it into the field of 30. But he admitted he had distractions on Saturday. Some of them are positive distractions because, he's getting heckled a little bit by Mizzou folks. But I felt nothing but absolute love for Gary Woodland on that golf course this week. He was a fan favorite. A lot of people rooting for him yesterday, Dan.
And we really don't know what he's going through with the PTSD because he has to disguise it on the outside. And people saw afterwards when Demanda Balionis had the interview.
He got emotional.
The second question, he got emotional because what he was doing over the weekend were two different things. He was tolerating it on Sunday, but he was distracted by it on Saturday. And the other thing that comes into play, and probably the best interview would have been to talk to his caddy, because the caddy is assigned to protect him whenever things start to go against him, whether it's on the round, on the range, whatever it might be. They are bonded in a way that caddy and player have never been bonded in the game of golf. A lot of guys, Teddy Scott with Scotty Scheffler they're a great friendship there, and they have religious connections. But Gary Woodland's caddy is his protector on the golf course, and he's aware of what needs to be done, and he's the one that sort of grabs him and says, okay, we're going to settle down and we're going to move forward.
Dan, there are a lot of things that happen in the course of a tournament that affect the finish, but I got to tell you, because I was watching 11 when Rory tied, as I told you, Patrick Cantlay double bogeyed 11, and if he doesn't do that, he's right there at the finish, perhaps in a playoff with Wyndham Clark.
Well, he birdied the last three holes to guarantee that he was going to Atlanta, so he matched Wyndham Clark over the final three holes. Now, it's hard to say, that separation. I mean, everybody could play a what if, if Rory had put the drive in the fairway on 17 with his length, what would that outcome have been?
Well, that's
but
a good point.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. There are so many things that could have changed. And would the club have picked Wyndham Clark to be their champion going out the door? No, they don't. But, that's golf. And I had, quite honestly, I was rooting for him to win because I had told Tom Ackerman on Sunday morning that there was no way he was going to lose this championship. And even Frank looked over at me and was taunting me on my prediction.
Yeah.
And at the end, I said to Frank, he said it got close. I said he won by 3, Frank. Don't give me a bad time.
Well,
you have those kinds of connections.
He had a great, 16, 17, 18 couldn't have gone better for him. And those are tough holes, by the way. I can't remember who it was, but I was watching someone on 16 yesterday early in the round. So this wasn't someone, who was contending. And they're assessing 16's a long par 3. And the cat, I don't think he was real happy with his caddy, and they're kind of talking. And what I heard him say is, well, I'm not trying to make par here. In other words, I'm trying to make birdie. And I don't think he really appreciated the advice that the caddy was giving. And then I saw someone, God, I can't remember, Dan. I think I told you yesterday. He was in the rough at 17, and it was a bad lie. And he tries to hit out of the rough, maybe 9 or 7 iron, and he literally goes about 30 yards to the rough and is deep in the rough again. We saw Goddard do that yesterday. He went from bunker to the creek on 17. He did that 2 days in a row, didn't he?
Yeah, and that was the same bunker that Clark was in the final group. It's almost an identical circumstance, a little bit of upslope, and he darn near shanked the ball into that creek. You know, the other thing that was going on that was really strange, and I don't know why the golf course was that way. I pointed out to somebody after they made the turn, on the front 9, the top 4 players on the leaderboard had 8 bogeys and a double on their card, and very few birdies. There was something, and I think what we never, ever can see in golf is we don't know what pressure looks like.
That's true.
We can see the outcome of it. We don't know what they're feeling. And you know from golf, you're feeling pressure over every shot you play. Imagine you're playing for $20 million purse, or you're trying to get to Atlanta, or you're trying to be exempt to get into events next year. Imagine what that pressure must feel like, and who out there is actually relaxed over the ball. I don't know who that person is.
Right. And so the best example of that is, and you're the one who pointed this out, because it was actually on 9 fairway when Gary Woodland was teeing off. He's hitting hybrid, and he completely does something that every amateur golfer does on a regular basis and can relate with. He tops the ball, and I'm not sure it goes by the ladies' tees. It goes into the creek. And he laughed about it afterward because he had such a great round and he makes it into the top 30. But good Lord, you don't see professional golfers do that ever.
No, he actually got sort of a bad break, because if he had topped it a little left, he'd have run it across the bridge and got it back into the fairway. And when I was watching that, they had the shot tracer there, and I thought the shot tracer had broken because
it was bad.
It never left the ground. And then CBS reversed the camera angle, and we saw what happened.
I got a lot of shots in my shot history that are just like that, Dan Reardon. Well, listen, it was a great weekend. I know that you were out there a lot. It was a lot of fun. The weather cooperated. The galleries were amazing. The fans were respectful. It really was a lot of fun. But now we got to wait till 2030 for the President's Cup, right?
Yeah, for us to be locally, but I guarantee you I'll be tuned in to see what happens at the Tour Championship, because player of the year is very much on the line. Wyndham Clark has jumped into the lead, but if Scheffler or McIlroy post to win in Atlanta, we're going to have a serious argument take place among the experts.
I think that you could probably – I could probably make a strong case right now that it's not Wyndham Clark, just based on everything that Scotty's been able to do this year. But the players vote on that, right?
That's where Wyndham Clark faces the biggest challenge.
Yes.
He is not the most popular player on tour by any means, and everybody on tour concedes that Scotty is the best player in the world.
So explain a little bit of why Wyndham has that reputation. There was something that happened last year at Oakmont, right?
Yeah, he had won the U.S. Open the year before and then did absolutely nothing. In fact, played extremely poorly following that. Got to Oakmont, missed the cut, and went in and trashed the locker room. And I don't mean threw things. I mean, he broke things. He broke trophies. He damaged the locker room.
Yeah, that's
and
bad.
Immediately the next day, Oakmont announced that he was banned for life from that property. Now, he was required to pay things back. He was required to take anger management sessions. But they have never announced that they have erased that ban for life. And Oakmont is the most heavily played U.S. Open course in history. So he's got to hope that they actually lift that somewhere in the near future. He's just, I said he's got rough edges. He says things on the golf course that he shouldn't say, as we discovered yesterday. He's not as polished as you expect a tour player to be. I would compare him to a rougher version of Patrick Reed in that way. And he just sits with people a little wrong, but he can play, and he earned that.
And that's interesting, the correlation or your comparison to Patrick, who I just can't stand. And, Wyndham Clark, though, he's 32 years old. So, a lot of times I think with Bryson in particular, I used to hate Bryson. I think a lot of people. Then there was maturity that came along, and now maybe we're back to immaturity. But Wyndham Clark is 32 years old. I mean, he's too old to be breaking things in locker rooms and stuff like that. Scotty's going to be player of the year. Dan, we'll talk next week, get some updates on the Tour Championship a little later in this week, rather. I appreciate all the coverage. It was great to see you out there at Belle Reve. I think it was absolutely a successful 6 days for this BMW Championship.
And Mark, I enjoyed it.
All right, take care.
On the Illinois side, we've got a little bit of volume on 64 eastbound, headed for 159, but that's it. We look fine on the bridges downtown. Westbound 64, still some slow pockets of traffic approaching Hampton through the inner belt and a little bit at Lindbergh. Accident reported now, westbound 6440. Before Chesterfield Airport, well, it's actually just past Chesterfield Parkway and before Chesterfield Airport Road, and a slow go there. Then you get a break and things slow up again at Lake St. Louis Boulevard. But we look pretty good on 55, 270 southbound, moderate volume, kind of on either side of Manchester, and also 270 slowing a little bit in both directions at 70. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Well, I did not see my friend Bill Kaufman out at Belle Reve. He's a member. He's the guy that runs Banner Construction with Sam P. They have a great company here. They can hook you up with beautiful, low-maintenance, gorgeous James Hardie fiber cement siding. So you don't have to clean it as much as other types of materials. You can usually just spray it with your hose using a soft cloth. You don't have to worry about power washers. The aesthetics are beautiful. You have options like shake and curve shake and vertical plank and brick and stone and lap and wood shingle. This is a durable product. It doesn't warp, crack, or dent easily. It can withstand hot and sub-freezing temperatures. So St. Louis has both of those. Very energy efficient, fire resistant, pest proof, and it increases your home value. So that should be enough at least to turn you in the direction of a free in-home design consultation, whether it's for James Hardie fiber cement siding or the Pella replacement windows they can help you with. They only deal with the best products, and the best products only deal with the best contractors. And Banner qualifies in both directions, right? 314-569-1050. Have a banner day, bannerconstruction.com. I'm not a big steps counter. You know, a lot of people count their steps. They try to get in so many steps a day.
Right,
I always like it when
right.
people just kind of try to step in place to get their steps in. You ever seen people do that?
I have. It's crazy.
It's kind of goofy. I don't remember the last time I looked at Apple Health for my steps, but I decided to do it after last week. So last Tuesday, Sue, which was the first round of the practice round, I only went out there for a couple hours, 6,585 steps. Wednesday was the day that Schmidt was in the Pro-Am. I got 77,000 steps, 778. Thursday tailed off a little bit, 6,430 steps.
That's it. You're not hitting 10,000.
Well, that was like the opening day of the tournament. I'm not
Okay,
sure why I
that's
didn't.
fair.
Oh,
Yeah.
Here we go.
All right, give me the
Friday.
goods.
Now, Friday was the day that Becky went with me. 10,375.
There we go.
Okay, and then for
That's like 5-ish miles.
yeah, it's about 5
Yeah.
miles. So for Saturday, apparently I sat in the stands a little bit more, 6,972. For yesterday, 7,605. Okay,
All right,
not
all
too
right.
bad. You want to take a stab at what today's steps are?
I'm going to say 1,682.
I would reduce that by about 1,000.
No!
Yes.
862.
No, I'd reduce it by more. 614 steps. All I'm doing is sitting my fat ass here in the studio doing a radio show, and I kind of slept in today just because Alexa went to school. Thank God.
Yes.
Oh, my God. That's like my audio cut of the day should be me shouting to the rooftop that my daughter's finally back in school. I'm telling you, somebody out there is going to have to pick up on this idea. Maybe it'll be me. You do a little school raffle. I guess we'd have to get the teachers and the principals involved, but raise money for the school district. And you offer this. If you win the raffle, your kids start school 2 weeks earlier, right? If you're second place in the raffle, they start a week earlier. If you're third place, they start like 3 days earlier. I think every parent would donate a lot of money to the schools. You know, we always bitch about our taxes. This would be money well spent. That is the wrong thing. I was supposed to hit audio cut of the day. It's a Monday. I'll forgive myself.
Playback ready.
Now, the audio cut of the day.
Well, Frank, kind of mentioned this, or no, Dan mentioned it a few minutes ago, and I wanted to use this as cut of the day because I don't think a lot of people did hear this. Scotty Scheffler, and it's funny because Idris, I don't know if I told you this, my grandson literally had hand, foot, and mouth last week, and he's gotten it second time now. So I guess my question is Scotty Scheffler like 2 years old? Because listen to this.
No, I got, the hand, foot, mouth, so you get your blisters on your hands and in your throat and on your feet. To start the week, it was pretty painful to grip the club, but if I was smarter, maybe would have pulled out. But I was playing so good, I felt like if I could knock it out quickly and just get through the first couple rounds, I'd still have a chance. But I think that's part of my stubbornness, probably, and that's probably a strength of mine and a weakness at times. Like I've never been one to ever pull out of a tournament, and, especially in the middle of it. That's really frustrating for me, and so I definitely didn't want to do that.
Yeah, well, we're glad he knew the fans would.
Yeah, the fans would have.
Even yesterday, the fans were following him like crazy, even though he wasn't in contention, just because he is Scotty Scheffler. And we had Cusumano on earlier for a regular Monday hit. I have to play this because I thought it was a fantastic interview that Frank did with Jim Nantz. And Jim Nantz is the consummate pro, and here's what he said about St. Louis.
First of all, I know you have such an affection for our city. What did you think of the way we supported golf this weekend?
It's almost beyond description. I tried my best to frame it with the right words, but the last thing I said going off the air was, well done, St. Louis. You don't see this everywhere. It just felt so big. They raised the event to a wonderful level, to a major championship feel and vibe, and it's just a credit. It's just such a great sports town. It's known universally as a great baseball town, but I got to tell you, the golf part of it as a golf town, it's huge. It's right up there with the best.
He made a little greatest show on turf reference yesterday, which I think a lot of us totally understood, but he felt the need to explain it to the rest of the national audience because, 25 years since the Rams. But the whole team at CBS, I don't think, Fox tried golf for a while. They tried to do golf, and it was rough to begin with. And, but it got better. But these guys have they
have it down to a science. And the whoever is directing that thing, give me hole 9, give me hole 8.
That's a tough job.
Flawless, and it's unbelievably great.
Because a lot of the shots aren't live.
Right.
Some of them are live, but then you have to go back and say, okay, we got to go back to this one. Their broadcast is incredible.
Flawless.
It really is. And I would highly recommend, I've said this a couple of times, go to my Twitter, at Mark Reardon, KFTK, or Frank's. Watch that interview with Jim Nantz. It's outstanding. Congratulations to St. Louis for an amazing sports weekend. Not only the BMW, but Savannah Bananas, huge downtown. Now the Cardinals are back in town.
We've got an accident westbound 6440. and it's really close to Boone's Crossing, and they are saying all lanes are closed. The cameras out there are out, so I can't see it. I'm relying on MoDOT, and they are saying westbound 6440 before Boone's Crossing, all lanes closed, and we've already got a parking lot jam behind it back to Timberlake Manor. If you're headed out there, that is the cause of the delay. Now, 70, if that can be used as an alternate for you, looks fine. Or you could go northbound 270 to 364. 364 looks good at this hour. If you are on southbound 170, it's still slow, ramping onto eastbound 40. And westbound is moderate volume from Hampton out through McCausland. Fine on the bridges, but eastbound 64, that is jammed approaching 159 on the Illinois side due to road work. This report brought to you by Midwest Gun Works. When it's time to repair or upgrade your firearm, get the right part the first time. Since 1997, Midwest Gun Works has been a trusted source for OEM parts, accessories, and expert gunsmithing. Shop MidwestGunworks.com or visit them in Peevely, Mo. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's Traffic 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.